But then there was the Permanent Extension Act. I'd have to look into it.
Yes.
But I know the Permanent Extension Act, if they were registered, it would have allowed them to extend their approval till, I believe, December of 21 or 2020. So I'm assuming that they still have time under this. But we could, if you want me to look into it, we could carry it. There's no rush on it, honestly.
Is there any risk of expiration if we carry this to January, just so that we don't establish?
Well, I think this last extension, I mean, it's, something that we have been approving. I mean, if people are, or the board is against giving the extensions, then maybe get the information, but.
Yeah.
I just don't know when they're, because this came in today.
So, I mean, they can
So I
carry
didn't have
it
a time.
indefinitely as long as we approve it.
The board has been doing that.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
I think if anything, if we're concerned about maybe time, we've seen this a few times before. If we put it to a vote, maybe with the condition that if they ask for the next extension, maybe they just come and give us a little testimony as to additional information to why.
Right.
From the letter, again, the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously construction costs have risen significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just the shortfall and the ability to secure a little more funding. They're just they're looking for the right time. Other than that, I don't see really any other issue. We've granted the extension before, but maybe if there is some concern by the board, we can just request and put maybe a condition that if nothing has changed in this for next year, maybe they're going to request for another one. We would just maybe like to see counsel or someone to just give us a little more in depth.
Yeah, we can do
presentation.
that. Excellent comments. I mean,
That's very reasonable.
Maybe the next extension, have them come in.
Yeah.
To speak about it. I think it is funding.
The only other thing I'll add is that technically approvals don't expire.
Right.
It's just their protection under zoning. So if the zoning changes, that's when there's an issue. But the approval itself doesn't expire.
All right. Okay. Well, I feel like that's a very reasonable approach if they want another extension to come in. So I don't know if you feel like fashioning that into a motion.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve calendar, let me just pull it up, calendar 825-17 as it is written.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Let's do a roll call.
Excuse me, on the motion, you included in your motion that
With the
further
condition of-
extension.
Yeah, with the condition
that further extensions, be somehow represented by council in terms of an update on the project.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. We have a motion with the condition. We have a second. Let's do a roll call. Okay. Mr. Bartlett.
Yes.
Mr. Campriel.
Yes.
Ms. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Lau.
Yes.
Ms. Odinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Devine.
Yes.
And me, yes. All right. Extension passes. Thank you. Okay. I've stalled all I can. No mayor in sight. So let's get rolling with calendar 894-25. If he shows up, we'll look for a logical sort of conversational break and see if we can fit him in. I really hope that we don't have to do that, but we'll do our best. So thank you. Your case.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Benjamin Wine of Prime Tuvel and Misselli on behalf of the applicant Golden Care Therapy. This is an application before you this evening that definitely bears out giving a little bit of history and a little bit of background as to how we got here and why we're before the board and ultimately what we're seeking, and then we can walk through our presentation. So the short of it is that what we're proposing to do is to fit out the ground floor, the existing commercial space at the ground floor of the building at 2 Forest Avenue, which for the record is block 503, lot 64, with a child care / autism therapy facility. And you'll hear more about the exact operations in detail shortly, but again, a little bit of background that I think is worth the board understanding. So many months ago, my client applied to the zoning official, to Mr. Depkin, for a zoning permit to fit out the space as medical office therapy, which is the vast majority of what occurs as part of the operation. And he was granted a zoning permit to be able to occupy the space as such, went ahead, pulled relevant permits to actually perform the fit out and the renovation to make the space usable. And ultimately, when he applied, I believe it was for a CCO, a certificate of continued occupancy, Mr. Depkin came back and understandably saw what was set up in this space, and I won't speak for him, but I did read his letter, and felt that it was more akin to a child care facility, which is not a use that was outright permitted as part of the prior resolution to construct what is an existing office building. So in other words, if the board feels, or if Mr. Depkin had felt that it was more akin to a medical office use, Mr. Depkin was willing to issue that zoning permit to continue, and ultimately the CCO. But having felt that it was more akin, or at least somewhat in a gray area, whereby there's child care that occurs there, he felt that it was a D1 use variance and properly cited before this board to make a decision. So having no objection to that approach, that's why we're here before this board. But as you will hear through the testimony, you yourselves may find yourselves a little bit confused as to whether this leans more towards medical therapy use or more towards child care. So I would just let the board know that really the two options that are available to you this evening, and we're comfortable with either one, quite frankly, is to effectively decide that this is more akin to medical office use, in which case the appropriate action would be respectfully for the board to ask Mr. Depkin to issue the CCO and allow my client to operate. Or if the board feels that this is more akin to child care therapy, then I would ask you to weigh all of the evidence and the testimony that will be presented this evening with respect to the inherently beneficial nature of a child care use, and ultimately grant the D1 use variance. So I know that was a little bit of a prelude, but I think it was important to go through it, as it is a little bit of a gray area case. Not to suggest that there's anything wrong with the application. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to utilize vacant commercial space, and as I mentioned before, it was constructed, or renovated, I should say, in good faith reliance based upon an initial zoning permit that was received. So, but for a few odds and ends, it is ready to be operational effectively fairly shortly. So, like I said, we're not proposing any additional site changes to the property. You'll hear from our traffic engineer. There are 45 parking spaces currently on the site that are available, that are planned to be utilized through a combination of our use as well as the two more traditional office uses that are located on the upper floor of this existing space. We're not proposing any alterations to the exterior of the building. To the extent that there might be signage, probably will be signage at some point, that would be applied for under separate permit and would either comply with your signage ordinance or would require a trip to either the planning or zoning board, depending on the circumstance. But again, as part of this application, this is really for the board to decide, is this closer to medical, is this closer to child care, and we'd respectfully ask that you act in favor of the application, whichever route you ultimately choose. So with that, I'll ask if you have any questions of me. Otherwise, I do have 3 witnesses with me that I intend to call. I'll call the Chief Operating Officer of Golden Care Therapy, Akiva Topper, who will speak to the proposed operations, what Golden Care does, what it currently does, and how it's proposing to shift into this location. Then I have our civil/traffic engineer, Justine Fox of Stonefield Engineering, who, while there are no site changes, I think it's an important bit of testimony to speak to the parking, the circulation, and the expected traffic associated with the use. And then finally, we have our professional planner, Joe Burgess, who, if the board does determine that this does require use variance relief, his testimony will be speaking to the D1 use variance. So I know that was a lot to digest, but unless you have any questions of me, I'm happy to proceed with my first witness.
So just maybe combined questions for yourself and some of our professionals. From a procedural standpoint, are you looking to have us determine whether we see it as a childcare facility versus a medical facility first before testimony, or do you want us to hear everything and then make that determination at the end? And professionals, feel free to weigh in on what the right thing to do is.
Yeah, I'll give my suggestion would be to hear certainly the operations testimony, because I think that's going to be critical to any determination that you make. Probably the traffic testimony as well. And quite frankly, if you'd like to hear all the testimony before coming to that conclusion, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Chairman, I have a question just in regards, just in his asked about the use. When you apply and you run the operation, I'm assuming you have certain licenses that you need to have with the state, correct?
So that's where it gets a little bit tricky, and our operator
So
will...
what do you operate
Right.
under with the state?
Right.
'Cause ultimately, I think that'll help allow us as the board to know
Yep.
what you need to register for their compliance,
Right.
which ultimately will come downstream to how municipal need to handle this, and again, just allow us to know which
Sure.
way we would lean.
Sure, and that's why when they initially applied to Mr. Depkin, they went in under medical/therapy use, because this is not licensed by the DHS, this is not under the Department of Education, there are no licensed educators affiliated with this facility or early childhood care professionals. All of the professionals at this site they're behavioral therapists. You'll hear again in detail about how they operate and what they do, but that's kind of why long before I was involved and they thought they needed counsel to begin with, they applied as a medical use, because the professionals that are there are therapists. They are not child care operators, and they're not required to be child care operators.
But do you have compliance with, state, I'm sure, inspections and everything separate to municipal, and where do they classify the operation? Do they classify it as a medical use that, based on who's the employees that are there, or do they look at it on the, again, day-to-day operation, how many people are inside and the amount of, hours of operation?
So I'll let our operator speak to the specifics. I don't want to say the wrong term, but again, it is more towards the medical side in that regard. There is no license requirement by the state for child care facility, which definitely does exist for a more traditional child care facility. Again, this is specifically therapy for autistic children. That some of this therapy and some of the way it works is that a given child could be dropped off for a 1-hour session every day, which is more typical of a medical type therapy. And there are some children who are dropped off for 6-7 hours for the day, and there's no parents that stay around or anything like that. So in that regard, and that's why I think Mr. Depkin understandably, felt, well, that kind of looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. There's definitely an element of that child's care. But I'll let our operator speak to the licensing and certifications and all that. Sure.
Maybe just to follow on, and if we need to take it up when you have your witnesses, that's
Sure.
fine too. So I guess my question is, who has made the determination as to what the right licensure is? Has the state determined that, yes, this is in fact a medical therapeutic facility, or is it the operator who's determined what licensing they need?
Yeah, I'm going to defer that
Okay.
question and let him respond to that, if that's okay.
Anyone else? No. All right.
All right, so with that, I'll call up the man of the hour, our operator.
If you could just raise your right hand.
Sure,
Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you're about to give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And can you please state your name and spell your last name for the...
My name is Akiva Topper, Topper.
And can you just spell your first name too?
Akiva.
Thank you. And can you also give your business address for the record?
Sure. It's 4770 White Plains Road, Bronx, New York, 10470.
Just a quick audio adjustment.
Sure.
Oh, okay, that's it. All right, all yours.
All right, so I'll speak loudly. You can hold the mic. I've never been accused of speaking too quietly.
So just so you know, the mic in the middle there, that picks up both of you guys, just so you know. So the handheld you really don't need.
Okay, great. All right, so Akiva, you've been sworn in, so why don't you tell us a little bit about Golden Care Therapy and then your role with the company?
Sure. So Golden Care Therapy is a ABA autism therapy company that provides services to kids ranging from the ages of 2 to 18. Primarily, Golden Care services these kids in home. We send a therapist to the house. We have a BCBA, who board certified behavioral analyst, who oversees the clinical aspect of the therapy being done. And our role is to work with the kid on any deficiencies that autism has caused them. So that could be anywhere from social, behavioral, or even educational at times. I am the COO of the company. I've been so for 4 years, and my job is to oversee the overall operations of the company, making sure that we're bringing on the right type of therapists, efficiency, and growth for the company as well, which has led us to Oradell and opening up a in-person clinic in Oradell, New Jersey.
Okay, and so you mentioned that obviously this is primarily an in-home care operation.
Correct.
So what has led you to seek out a physical location, and how do you anticipate that working either in conjunction or in addition to the in-home therapy?
Correct. So thank God over the state of New Jersey, we have close to 1,000 different clients, we call them, that we service. And our goal with the physical location is there are barriers when working in home with these children. Not every family has the materials that are necessarily needed, and we have many therapists and board certified behavioral analysts who also don't necessarily have the materials that are needed. So our goal is to get all of this under one roof to provide the most excellent possible care that we can for these kids under one roof for as many hours as they are authorized by insurance per day, and as much as the family is willing. So we're able to provide all these different interventions, we call it, inside this facility by buying these materials, and we're able to make it very specific to the kids that we are working with during those times that they're there.
Okay, great. So you heard, just to preempt a couple of the questions that you already kind of heard, in terms of licensure, certification, state regulation, can you talk to us a little about what's required? And I think one of the questions was who made the decision as to what's required for this use?
So the licensure works like any other medical licensure. We are governed by the BACB, the Board of Behavioral Analysts Board. I think it's Behavioral Analyst Certification Board, I think is what it's called. They're the ones who administer, it's a master's degree that these BCBAs, the Board Certified Behavioral Analysts, have to get. And then our therapists, they get what's called registered behavioral technicians. They take a 40-hour certification course. It's all governed by this board to provide the actual therapy. And there is no difference of whether or not we're providing the therapy in the kid's house, in a daycare, in a school, in a physical location, as long as the people administering the therapy are licensed or certified under this board, the BACB, as it's called.
Okay, and in terms of the nature of the children that you service, can you talk to us a little bit about the different, I guess, in a sensitive nature, but the different levels of therapy or care that is sometimes needed and provided?
Sure. So I'm not going to claim to be a clinical person at all. I'm strictly on operations, but from my experience, there's different levels of autism. I believe it's level 1, level 2, and level 3. And these can range on deficiencies in behavior that we work on. These can be language, of kids being able to speak, social, of kids being unable to acclimate to a regular classroom, with friends, or even in the homes as well. So these are all different skills, we call them, and we administer goals and targets, and we work on mastering these goals and targets through our program to make them be able to acclimate better to society. Obviously, the younger that they are and the younger we are able to work with them, the more they're going to be able to be helped down the line, as opposed to getting someone who's a little on the older, the teenager end. But we are able to work with all these different populations through our experienced therapists and BCBAs to help them with these services.
Okay, great. In terms of this facility specifically, which is why we're here, so walk me through what a day in the life of a child would look like going to this facility, from drop off to pickup.
Sure. So a parent would come in, drop them off, let's say anywhere between probably 8 to 9:30 a.m. and a therapist will come out to the car to pick them up, walk them into the facility. and they have their designated rooms, which is, again, probably why Mr. Depkin had kind of a visual of a child care, is because they have their designated rooms with table and their toys, their materials, and whatever we know that we're going to be working with them. So we administer the therapy then, which is, I've never been a therapist, but it's essentially using the materials to work on the goals and targets that the BCBA sets for them. And then you have the usual, there's group therapy also, where they work together as a group. There's larger play areas also, so they're not condoned to a room for the entire day. They can move around the space, and I would encourage everyone to check it out. It's a pretty nice space. But and then you go, if they end up staying through lunch, they have a lunch. We're not bringing any outside food. We're not having like any vendors come in and bringing lunch or any stuff like that. It's stuff that the kids bring from home. And they continue through the therapy throughout the day. The BCBA, who is there supervising, also works individually with the kids and with the therapist to make sure that the therapy being administered is up to the par of the licensing board of the BACB, and the treatment plan, which is individualized to the kid to make sure they're being successful.
Okay, and are there kids that are there for a shorter amount of times or less days per week versus others who may be there for a longer period of time every day?
Yes, so some kids will come in similar to a home session. A home session usually is about 3 hours, so kids would also come in, after school. If it's on the older side, if someone's 8, 9, 10 years old, they might come in after school for a few hours for the parents. So like I said before, we have all the materials there, so the families don't have to worry about, spending and buying anything for the kids. It's all there for them. And for the kids that are there longer, usually it's like the 3, 4-year-olds who they might have been going to a daycare. The daycare said, we can't really have them here unless you bring in a therapist. So we say, why not just come to us, and we have the therapist here, and we'll work with you here. So they would be there for a little longer, but it's a little bit of a mix between the both.
Okay, great. And I think it's fair to say that's perhaps where this gray area comes in regarding between therapy versus some form of childcare. Okay. In terms of the number of staff and kids that you anticipate, I would say at a typical time versus at your busiest time, what are you thinking?
Yeah. So if the space is built out to house between 25 to 30 kids at one time, there's 10 individual therapy rooms with enough seating for 3 children and 3 staff members in the room at all times, as well as we have 2 very large play areas for them with a lot of materials in there as well. So we would have anywhere between 25 to 30. It's one-to-one therapy, so it could be anywhere between 50 to 60 people there at one time.
Okay, one-to-one, meaning if there are, if it might be a low point of the day and there's only 20 children there, you would have 20 staff. If
Correct.
it's a high point and there's 30 children, you would have 30 staff members.
Correct.
Okay, understood. In terms of the hours of operation, I think you alluded to a general drop-off and pickup time. I'm assuming that's your, traditional, typical peak, but are there children who are dropped off throughout the day and or picked up throughout the day?
Yes, so it all depends on, parents and when they sign up and, what time slots they do. But our plan is that we're, I'm joined by some of my team back there, and our operations manager is back there as well. But she will be the one to open the doors at about 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, for the first parents to be there to drop them off. Right, and then throughout the day, if a parent, has a schedule that's from 11 to 2 o'clock, that's when that parent's going to come. So there will be times where, again, it depends on when the kids come in, but there will be times where you get 10 kids in the slot from 8 o'clock to 9:30 in the morning, and then you could get another 5 kids from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and then maybe after school, some from 2:30 to 5 o'clock or whatever it is. But there will be ranges throughout the day, I could predict.
Okay, so unlike, more traditional childcare where there's a rush to drop off at 8 o'clock every morning, where all 30 kids would be dropped off, this is not what's likely to occur at this site.
Correct.
Okay, so let's move on and talk about the the garbage disposal. So what type of
Yeah.
trash are you anticipating generating at the facility?
So it's going to be general waste, bathroom, and materials, papers, and stuff like that. Maybe if the kids are younger, maybe some diapers and stuff like that. But nothing, no big garbage is going to be disposed of. The therapists themselves, they are going to be cleaning. As the stuff gets thrown on the floor, they pick it up. We plan on having a cleaning crew coming multiple times a week, and there's a dumpster on site for this stuff to be thrown out in the interim, so it doesn't stockpile in the actual location.
Okay, and as you, I believe you're on a lease, but you will own the property at some point. So there's no issue if you needed an additional trash pickup to the dumpster, you could control that.
That's correct. Our plan is that if all goes well with approval for occupation, then we will purchase the building, God willing, in the beginning of 2026.
Okay, and then my last question, and I'm going to ask that you not get into specifics for obvious reasons, but general safety and security procedures that you're planning to have in place at the facility.
Yeah, so there is, just because of the population. So, first of all, everyone one-on-one, they're assigned to a specific individual. So, obviously, the safety of these children are utmost importance to us. So we plan on, fire prevention, lockdown drills, also egress appropriate, but alarms and stuff on the doors to make sure that we're notified. We have, walkie-talkies and stuff ready to go, communication, sign-in, sign-out sheets. We've adopted what we've seen in other facilities similar to this around the state of New Jersey to make sure that we are, in line with all those safety measures put in place.
Okay, and then along that line, I meant to ask as well, given the certification of the individuals, the therapists, they are first aid trained as well, is that correct?
Correct, and for now they will be, yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so Chairman, I think that's all I have for Mr. Topper at this time.
Okay.
The only thing I would ask, I apologize, I did ask Mr. Depkin if we could plug in, if the board, I think you should have the plan in front of you, but if you wanted to share it on the screen, we could at least show the layout. So, just if you want to plug in your computer.
I don't know if you're going to reach it over there.
Where's the plug-in?
You want to plug it into the...
Great, and the last question, so all I'm going to ask you, Akiva, is just identify on the plan where those individual therapy rooms are that you were referring to, as well as the general play areas.
Okay. My eyesight's not great.
If you want to look on here, that might be easier.
Yes. Can everyone hear me still? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, starting from this room over here is where the individualized therapy rooms are. It says existing office, but that would what we would call therapy room 1. And then it just wraps around over here. Actually, therapy room 1, starts over here. After this door, this is where our administrative offices are. And an assessment room for where the families come in to have their child assessed to get approved for therapy. And then starting from here, it would wrap around all the way until here. And then we have the larger play area here, that's number 1. Larger play area here, number 2. And then here we actually put in like a reading nook for the kids to relax a little bit, some beanies, stuff for them to sit on and read.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Now that's all I have for Mr. Topper.
All right. Thank you. So, professionals, let's start with Caroline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's just go back to site operation a little bit. So you indicated that this would open at 8 a.m.?
About, yeah.
7:30, 8,
No,
8:30?
definitely not before then.
Open at 8, and when would it close for the day?
So our staff will be there at around 5 o'clock.
And would there be specific staff shift hours? In other words, like 8 to 2, 2 to 5, something like that?
It works with scheduling because we get a staff member and we match them to a kid based off of the staff member's strengths and what the kid's needs are. So as long as that kid is in the facility, that's when that staff member will be there. So if the kid is there for 6 hours, the staff member will also be there for that long. And they also could be there, I'll make it simpler. If a kid is there the whole day, we'll have one staff member there the whole day. If the kid is not there the whole day, and we have a kid who will come, let's say, for 3 hours, and another kid that will come for also 3 hours, we could match up one staff member to 2 kids also for the 2 different shifts. I wouldn't look at it as shifts so much.
Okay, so since it's a 1-to-1 matchup,
Yeah.
to your point, a staff member could be there for 2 hours if that's how long the child is there, or it could be there with 2 hours for one child and 2 hours with another child for a total of 4 hours, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you indicate this was your first physical location?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any information with respect to the need or the draw for something like this? Do you anticipate it's mostly from Oradell? Is it from surrounding towns? Is it the entire county? Is it the entire northern New Jersey?
So we did research before, because like I said, we do have clients and families across the entire state of New Jersey, and we were able to run like a geo pull-up of all of our kids, and based on like specific ages that we would probably want to do something like this with. And the most heavily populated was in Bergen County for us. And also there was just like a logical sense to doing it in Bergen County, based off of staff members that we have here as well that we're able to work with. And we, before we went outside of the organization to look for more kids to come to get services, we checked in with our families first, and they're the ones that showed most interest in this area, probably within a 15 to 20 minute radius from Oradell.
Are there other such, I don't want to use the term facility, are there other such operations nearby? Did you look at them? Is this how they're typically run?
Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
The reason that I'm asking about staff and these shift changes is because of parking and site circulation. I know you have someone from Stonefield here, but I'm also trying to get that type of information.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Based on however this application is going to be considered, we have to look for certain things. So that's the reason that I'm asking those questions. Okay. You indicated, or council indicated, that signage will be handled in a different application, so there's no signage, there's no exterior improvements, anything like that. Nothing changing to outside of the building, the stairway. Is it going to be accessible in the manner that's needed for all of your students?
Yeah.
Okay. How will lunch be? So would lunch? You said there's no outside vendors. There's not going to be any drop off of.
Comes with the kid, goes in the fridge,
okay,
and it gets served to them by lunch.
So each child is responsible for bringing his or her own lunch with them?
Yes.
Okay. What type of deliveries do you think you might have to the site?
Typical Amazon, UPS, FedEx deliveries, materials for the kids, printing paper, pens.
I'm just looking at my report to see if there's anything else
No worries.
that I have to pull up. Are students typically dropped off by their parents or another family member? There's no busing or anything like that?
No.
You indicated that the amount of time that a student stays has to do with the prescription that's provided, or excuse me, what the insurance would cover?
Authorization, yeah.
Right. So is there a specific prescription written for, in other words, this may not be a great comparison, but if you go for something like a physical therapy on your leg, you get a prescription written for a certain number of visits or something like that. Is that how this is handled?
Kind of. So the way it works is that the family would inquire with us about getting ABA therapy because their child has an autism diagnosis. So we look through that paperwork. We make sure that they have the actual diagnosis from a prescribing doctor. They have a referral from that doctor and a script from the doctor similar to the physical therapy. We then have to get authorization to do an assessment of the child. That assessment is done over the course of 10 hours. It's 2 hours of face-to-face, 8 hours of report writing by that board-certified behavioral analyst. After that, we have to send it back to the insurance company, and then they make a determination based on what we submitted, which is called a treatment plan. And we request specific hours in there based off of the levels of autism and the skills that we're trying to work on with the child. But they will make a determination based off of that. They don't go over 40 hours per week. They do it usually on hours per week. So they don't go over 40 hours, and it really depends on the age. A child who is over the age of 10, most of the time won't get over 20. The younger the kid is, probably more hours because there's more what to work with and skills that probably haven't been worked on or that they still need to achieve. But that's usually the way the process works.
And your current business is similar, except that the therapists go to the homes?
Correct.
The children's homes?
Similar. Yes. Correct. We go to homes, we go to daycares, we go to schools.
How long have you had this business?
So the business has been around since 2017, and January will be 4 years for me with this business.
And is your current clientele in the Bergen County area?
It is across the state of New Jersey, everywhere.
The entire state?
Yes.
I think that's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks. Dave?
Sure, I got a couple, not too many. So as far as like the scripts and stuff, you were talking, typically they get authorized for what, about 20 hours you said a week?
Depending on the age, the younger kid, the more they're going to get. But I would say let's just go with the younger population, probably between 30 to 40 hours per week.
And then do they give them like a week, a
It's
month?
a 6-month authorization.
Typically?
Yeah, and then you have to do a reassessment of what I was talking about before, and then that's the BCBA going in and doing that face-to-face for 2 hours again, and then, the documentation, submitting it back to the insurance. Did they improve? Did they hit goals and targets? Do we need to, have they plateaued? And then make a determination based off of that.
Gotcha. And then what do you typically see for like a student or, kid that's in the program? Like, so they'll get 6 months, and then, like, what's the overall duration that you would anticipate?
So we've had, since I've joined, we have kids who are still with us. And then some of them graduate, gladly. It means that we're doing a good job. We have kids that come in that are nonverbal, and they leave and they're, giving speeches like I am here. So it's impressive, and it varies. Some kids would only be with us for a few months, and then the parents, it's the parents' involvement also. They decide it's not for us. The kid has a lot of other stuff going on. This is not what's important for us right now. But we try to, anyone who comes our way, we want to be able to help them.
And then as far as the service too, I guess if the insurance doesn't approve it, do you have, people that pay out of pocket?
We do, but we don't really. It's expensive, so they don't really pay out of pocket.
Okay.
It's pretty. If the child has an autism diagnosis, the likelihood of getting denied is very, very low.
Okay. And then, so as far as the setup, if I heard correct, so 30 students, that's the max?
Max.
Okay. And then it's one-to-one as far as therapy side.
Yeah.
So then that's 30. What about also the support staff? Would it be more than that?
So there would be 2 people on top of that.
Okay.
So there would be the operations manager, who's joined here today, and the BCBA, Board Certified Behavioral Analyst, clinical operations, clinical manager in the facility. Also, she's also here today. Those would be the 2 support staff, I would say.
Okay, so roughly
Yeah.
62 is the max.
That's a max
That you
people
would-
that we would have there at one time, yeah.
Okay. That's fine. And then, so as far as pickup drop off, how does that, can you just walk me through
Sure.
how that functions
Sure.
related to that?
So, like I said, there's going to be different times probably when people are dropping off. We're going to open it up, the earliest a parent wants, as long as before it's not 8 o'clock. A parent wants to drop off at a certain time. They will pull in. We spoke about assigning slots specifically for the parent drop off. The therapist will come out, get the kid, mark off that they have the child, right? Sign in, sign out, that whole system. Walk them inside. We have cubbies for them. They hang up their stuff in their cubbies, bring their lunch to the fridge, walk them to their room, and rinse and repeat with, all the other kids. And it will be their assigned therapist that comes to get them.
Okay, so the therapist will come out,
Correct.
get the student, child from their car.
Makes it
and
move
bring 'em.
quicker, yeah.
And then I guess when they come to drop off, they'll be parking in spots or they're...
Spots.
Okay. Fair enough. And then as far as signage, correct me if I'm wrong, there's an existing sign out there today on Forest, correct?
Correct.
And then do you guys have signage on there today or?
I don't know if we ended up, I haven't been in the building.
Yes.
We put it up, right?
I believe-
But we were working on the one on the building itself. We just put it up in the monument right now, right?
Monument.
There's a monument sign
Yeah,
today
yeah.
for the building itself.
Correct.
And that's nothing, you guys didn't build the monument sign, that was
That was there from
existing.
before. Yeah.
Fair enough. Just want to make sure there is a sign there today for the existing building and
Yes.
do you guys have something on it? Or
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Fair enough. Those are the only questions I had.
All right. Steve?
Yeah, I have a few. The instructors, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. How many instructors per day?
There would be the one-to-ones. There would be a maximum of 30.
Maximum of 30 instructors. Is that at one time?
It could be.
Okay. Is that the reason for the offices, all those offices?
So, like the ones that wrap around in the back. So yeah, it's the therapy rooms.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be, it's really the child's home base, but they will be working in those rooms with them.
Okay. And the maximum number of children?
Would also be 30.
Would be 30.
Yes.
Okay. And the reason for the, do you have a website?
Yes.
Is it possible to pull that up?
Of course.
You connected to internet?
Yeah,
Okay.
I should be.
All right, I'm gonna let you do it.
While they're doing that, do you have other facilities like this?
This would be our flagship.
So on the website, does this indicate this specific facility?
Yes.
It does, okay.
So it's like,
www.goldencaretherapy.com.
And you don't have any other of these facilities in the state?
No, everything else is in-home, and that's,
In-home.
it pops up right there. Don't
If I
exit
may,
out.
if we could just mark this as Exhibit A, just the website, just so I could have the record clear. And can you just read off the link for me so I could put it on the record?
yeah.
goldencaretherapy.com.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Can you blow that up at all? Ooh, nice. Good job.
Flying by the seat of my pants, but it's,
Can you show what the facility you're proposing to the students and the parents?
do you have images on the website of the?
I don't believe the images are on the website itself. They might be on our Google My Business page. It's also on our Facebook page, and it's on our LinkedIn page.
Okay. We had researched it a little bit, but do you have any exterior, like a playground?
No.
Or anything like that at this time?
No.
That was on the website, though, wasn't it?
I don't believe so. It was?
Here's Sarah Nelson.
Someone over there is nodding their head.
What is that? There's a playground?
You have to speak into the mic. You have to,
But if people are going to speak, we have to have them come up.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so there's no plan for an outdoor
No.
At this time,
playground
okay.
area?
No.
Okay. All right, and is this a picture that I'm looking at here?
No, that's not.
Not, okay.
Down left, you see to the left.
Like here?
That is one of the pictures of the interior. The one below it also is a picture of the interior.
All right, I'll continue with my questions. So are you aware of the requirements from the state in regards to the International Building Code? What you have to do for a daycare? It's classified as a I-4 use. So there's more restrictive requirements than, therapy as we originally had thought. So are you aware of those?
I am not.
Okay, all right. And does the, I'm going to say the applicants to your facility, is it just in New Jersey, just New Jersey residents? Or are you taking them from other states possibly?
For this specific location,
Yes,
this would only be for New Jersey.
okay. All right. That's all I have for now.
Okay. Danielle?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. I know the age ranges, you said 2 to 18. Do you have how many in each age group approximately? Or is it really just
We don't. It's going to depend on enrollment because we had people enrolled, they fell off. We have to get them back, but they were all falling probably within the 3 to 7, 8-year-old range.
Okay. And then as far as, I know you said the state license each behavioral therapist. Do they license the facility as well?
No.
Okay, so each therapist has her own license.
Yeah.
And then as far as the insurance company, when you have to go through that authorization, is it approved as a daycare type of therapy, or is it behavioral therapy?
It's called clinic.
Clinic. Okay. Those are all my questions.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
I have another one.
I just had one
As
follow-up.
far as the drop-off,
Yeah.
is it all at one time in the morning?
No, it's going to be staggered.
Okay, so, I guess maybe the traffic report would be better. That there's no backup on
For sure.
Forest or Ridgewood, whether it's, dropping off or picking up.
For sure.
Okay, that's all.
Carolyn?
Thank you. So my only comment is, in light of the fact that it's been brought up about your website, and I'm looking at it, and it does indicate outdoor play space for fresh air and movement, that should the board look favorably upon your application, would there be agreement to a condition in the resolution that there would be no outdoor play area or any type of use such as that all activity other than drop off and pick up would occur within the building?
Correct.
And that's
Yes.
something you stipulate to, should the board act
Yeah, we
favorably
could
upon the
remove it
application?
tomorrow from the website.
I'm not trying to monitor your website, it's just because it was brought up.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, board questions. Who's got questions?
I have a few.
Yeah.
I know the professionals were talking about the operation and procedure with the clients. Who makes the request for a new client? Just kind of walk me through that process. Like if I wanted to be a client of your services,
Sure.
my therapist, then maybe I'm going to my doctor and they say, I think this type of care would be great for your child. And then here's a few that we refer, your company and any of the other affiliates. Or it's, I heard about this, I think this could work for my child. Let me reach out directly on your website and work on like an a la carte type service. Just kind of walk me through and understand, because I think that'll help, again, really, get this idea of, is it therapy? the gray area again between therapy and gray of how the consumer is coming into your
So
facility.
it's both.
Okay.
So we do have relationships with doctors, and it's not only doctors, but there are specific, I would call them care manager groups that help families navigate when they have a child who's on the spectrum. So through that relationship, they would say, your child has an autism diagnosis, the family's saying that, the kid's struggling at home. Here's a couple companies that you can reach out to. Golden Care is on that list. I believe legally they have to give 5 different recommendations. And then the other way is a family throws their hands up in there, their child is, misbehaving at home. They already know he or she has an autism diagnosis. So they say, ABA therapy company near me. And hopefully our website guys do a good job that we rank high enough for them to show up in their search or, all that Google stuff.
Could you gauge on a scale of where your current clients are right now, that it's more, again, through referral base or more on that?
I would say it's 50-50. Yeah.
You're hoping to get out of the gray area.
No, it's okay. Just again, while I have the floor, on the floor plan that we have here, I know you said everything is built out. Do you have any permanent fixtures? Because when I read it here, it's just existing office, and then when you were describing, you said one has a reading area, bean bags. It says play area. Do you have one, or do you plan to create one that maybe now we can see how the furniture and everything is set up there? Another sketch that, again, it makes you understand, again, the facility more than just 10 by 10 offices.
Yeah.
Because
to get a visual.
From what you described, each room has a little bit more different nuance to it, which then again can understand on this one is a 3-hour room or a 10-hour room, and this is a 1-hour room. Again, to just help us understand a little bit more.
Yeah, we go pull up a visual. I'll make sure that Ben.
Yeah, we do have it was like your marketing kind of booklet.
Yeah.
Unless you can find it faster, I'll email it to Justine and she can pull it up on the screen, and that has a lot of visuals. So let me find that.
Ben, when you get that, can you email it to me too?
Definitely.
Is this visual the answer to your question?
It has a lot.
Oh, okay.
I think it will be.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it'll, again, it really helps understand this difference between the
Yeah, because
treatment or daycare, because you have the 2 play areas here. I don't know what play area truly means. Is it mixing with a bunch of the different rooms, or is it just 1-to-1 there? Could you have 4 different therapists working there?
Because, they've also talked about potentially 30 students at a time, and there's private rooms for about 10 or 12.
I think
There's 3 kids per room.
that's what I remember hearing earlier.
There's enough room for 3 kids per room, yeah.
Okay.
That's just a guide.
And Steve, to that point, with 3 kids per room, is there any occupancy requirement, whether it's just
There is,
I-4?
but I think more important in regards to what's considered an institutional group in I-4, which a daycare is classified under. And
Do you have it?
institutional groups I-4 occupancy shall include the buildings and structures occupied by more than 5 persons of any age who receive custodial care for fewer than 24 hours per day. Persons other than parents and guardians relative by blood, marriage, or adoption, and in a place other than the home of a person to care for. This group shall be included, but not be limited to the following. One is adult daycare, and the other is child daycare.
But where does, if our threshold question that we're either being asked to consider is whether or not this is medical use or a daycare use, clinics therapy centers, are those within that I-4, or is there some
Well-
definition within the state ordinance or statute that would help us out?
If you're going with, this says of any age, 5 or more persons. So that's,
But does that mean every clinic is then considered a daycare
I'm
facility?
not going with clinic, I'm going what's considered daycare.
No, I know that, but if we're, I thought one of the questions that we were being asked was whether or not this was medical office use or a daycare facility. And if it is something that we're considering, is there a definition as to, we know the I-4 daycare facility, but is there anything out there, if any of the experts know, that would define what a clinic is or a therapy
Yeah.
center or?
I was going to ask the same question in a similar way. You mentioned that there are other operations such as this in the state that you're aware of. Do you know if any of them are categorized by the appropriate zoning jurisdiction as
The medical/office use.
they're all medical? None of them are considered daycare, and none of them required a use
Not
variance
the
for
ones
daycare?
that I researched.
And these companies operate out of a separate facility? They don't do the at-home care like you're currently operating
They do
under now?
both.
They have, yeah, they handle
Yeah.
and they have, a flagship location that you can look at, and the same type of operation is run
Yes.
there. And their classification under municipality goes into medical office, not daycare.
Yeah.
Would there be different licensure requirements for your employees if this was considered a daycare facility versus a medical office use?
I wouldn't even know the answer to that because we've never had to, go down that path.
Well, I think for those of us, right, who have used daycare facilities, they're very heavily regulated. There are
Right.
specific licensures and, all kinds of different facility requirements.
Yeah.
What would have been helpful, and I think I heard the answer to this question, is if your company had gone to, let's say, the Office of Licensing in the state of New Jersey or DCF and asked them, right, we believe this is a medical facility, but it sounds like, I think you said the average scripts you get are 30 to 40 hours a week, which is probably 6 to 8 hours a day. So you have a child in a facility under care with other children, more than 5, as Steve just said before, for 6 to 8 hours a day. It sounds like someone could argue that that's daycare, in addition to you providing therapy, and I think, well, I'll speak for myself, providing therapy for autistic children is a great purpose, great mission. I think it just would have been helpful if the state of New Jersey was making the call. I'm not sure, honestly, I'm not sure if we can make the call as to whether this is a daycare or not.
I think if I may, the only thing I would say is there's an element of how do you prove a negative, but then there's also an element of enforcement, right? And if I would imagine that an insurance provider, Aetna, United, whoever they may be, would have concerns with insuring or providing coverage for a facility like this if they were concerned it was a child care facility that was not properly licensed. But I think it's, like I said, it's how do you prove a negative, right? If you call the state and say, I provide therapy, but it's for a certain number of hours, I don't know that there would necessarily be they may turn around, and I'm hypothesizing and saying, well, what kind of therapy are you providing, and is it prescribed? And okay, so you're definitely a clinic, right? But I think if the other such facilities, as Mr. Topper said, are typically medical type uses, that's, again, where he felt that it was appropriate to apply for this application, right? There was never an intention to apply for the wrong thing and get it fit. It was this is a medical therapy facility because that's what it is. And but again, if the board feels that it's more akin to childcare, that's why we're here tonight, to provide that testimony as well, in whatever way makes you comfortable. If you feel it's both, then that's also an option to the board, right? And I defer otherwise to Mr.
Yeah, and again, I think we're open to listening to testimony and information from our experts, but myself, I don't feel like I'm qualified to say whether or not this is a medical facility or a daycare.
Well, again, the state specifically states daycare facility. It's not your determination whether it's a daycare facility.
And Steve, so you already researched, and based on your research, you believe it's a daycare?
Yes, as I discussed with the I-4. I-4 use, institutional use. There's a number of institutional uses. There's I-2, which is assisted living, hospitals, nursing, psychiatric hospitals, things like that. Therapy, I don't know what that would fall under, but that being said, what they are proposing with the amount of children, the age group, the state states it's an I-4.
That's I just want to be clear. That's defined in I-4 therapy.
No, not therapy. I'm going with daycare.
It's because the amount of children inside the facility, I think, is how they come to the determination that, you have that many within that amount of space. I mean, I don't know how big the building is total, but it looks like you're at least got to be over 5,000
Yeah, it's
square
about
feet.
5,500 square
Yeah,
feet.
so.
I mean, originally, when we did the application, or you did the application, it was a therapy use. That is considered more of a doctor, one-on-one, something like that, with a small number of, patients. As we went through it, we found out that it was more than that.
Could I also just ask another question along those lines, the number of students? You had said something about the potential of purchasing the building. Would that be with the intention of expanding this program, or would it be, just as a property investment to help pay for
Property
the...
investment. Yeah.
So the intention is not to use the upper floors of this building in a similar capacity?
Correct.
I don't know if you wanted to go through some of the photos. I think Mr. Butler
Yeah,
had
sure,
some.
that'd be great.
So I'm
Yeah.
happy to, and if you want, Ms. Federico, we can just mark this as A2, and I'll make sure to get that over.
Yep.
And these are the rooms you say at sometimes you could have
This is
3
the-
kids with maybe like each have a one-on-one therapist. So then
This is a lobby.
okay, right. So that's the lobby.
Yeah. This is a play area. Same play area, just a different angle. This is where, like I said, like the reading that hallway with like.
So in the play area, they have like the small little like jungle gym and stuff where they can be doing some like movements and
Yeah.
working on those items.
Yeah.
And in that time, how many if you're meeting with your one-on-one with the therapist, you bring them in there. Is there a chance that there's another group that's working with one of their patients in the play area at the same time, or it's kind of like it's a reserved item that I have this, I'm working with this at this time, or it's like multiple groups can mix in that communal area at a specific time?
I wouldn't say it's really putting groups. It could be multiple kids working with, yeah.
Multiple
probably like
kids
5
working with
sets.
one therapist.
Yes,
With their
correct.
own
Got it.
individual, yeah. And we'll just keep cycling through.
That's the reception area again. Bathroom.
Okay, and then I think that's it. The rest are.
Oh, something like that. See, that plan would have been.
Oh, we
that
had
would
on
have
the
been a
screen
good.
before.
No, but this I think has.
You see, it has all your
tables
fixtures in
and
there,
stuff.
so it shows what each room is encompassing. Where what we have here is solely just the empty rooms.
Yeah, that would be useful.
Zoom in on it, but my skills are.
It's blue beam.
Oh,
sorry.
here. Is it
Yeah.
this? Zoom?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe this would be good to mark the entire
Yeah, that's what we said. Well,
PDF as an exhibit, and we could be distributed
Yeah.
amongst the board.
Sure.
It's the application. So it's
Sure.
already marked.
Can you send us that PDF of that
Isn't that the
floor
application?
plan?
yeah, we'll send it over.
Thank you.
Isn't that the application?
Did this floor plan change from the one you
Yeah, isn't that
submitted?
in the application?
Or is this different?
I think the only difference, Akiva, correct me if I'm wrong, is that these are called therapy rooms instead of offices. The architectural plan wrote them out as existing offices, when in reality they are therapy rooms, but the actual dimensions and uses are identical.
So then we can mark this as A3 and we'll mark that rendering as A2.
Okay, I was going to mark this whole PDF package as
Oh,
a
okay,
single.
that's all one PDF.
Yeah, which I had as A2, but
That's fine.
okay, got it. Yeah,
All right, so that'll help us.
yeah. So we can get that over to you tomorrow, no problem.
Any other board
You
questions?
want a chair? You want me to bring a chair?
I have 2 follow-ups, actually.
I'm sorry, maybe one or two other questions, if that's okay. So I think we said that there is a max of 62 people, at the facility at any given point in time. What would you say on average you're talking about? Because one of the considerations, I think, also is the parking and the drop-off and the flow.
Yeah.
Maybe your professionals can just confirm this, but my understanding is there's no on-street parking in that area unless
Correct.
you're walking to the swim club, maybe. I don't know.
That would be the closest point, but that's the swim club and
Right, it's their property.
it's their property.
Right.
And there's actually, just to add to that, there's also a restriction, a condition of the approval when this was the whole building was approved and constructed, and I think it was '83. There was a condition that there would be no parking for this facility on Amelia Court, which is the closest side street.
Right.
So that would obviously carry through here as well.
Right. So what would you say on average? Because at least to me, 62 people, and I know we have to hear from your traffic person,
Yeah.
is a lot of people and a lot of cars and a lot
Yeah.
of drop-offs.
Yeah. So I would say, on average, it would be between 40 and 50.
Okay.
That's kind of inconsistent with what you provided with the parking survey. Do I have this right? The trip generation that was provided.
That's trip generation. That's a little bit different. We'll let Justino speak to that, but I think trip generation does not necessarily correlate to parking.
Okay.
So I guess I'll hold, other questions, until we get to the parking and, yeah.
And just a last question on the interior. I mean, you said that there will be potentially students as young as 3 years old. Do they require any, like, if they're there for a longer period of time, nap time, downtime, quiet time?
Yeah.
Is there a area for that provided here?
They will have in their rooms.
What's that?
They will have in their rooms.
In their individual
Yes.
parking room?
Do you have the square footage of the floor?
Yes, the whole area, it's not listed on here or the plan, but I believe it's 5,500 square feet.
And that's just the first floor?
Correct. The whole building is about 11,000 or so.
What's upstairs? You said you're not occupying the upstairs.
Correct. There is a law firm that's located there, and I believe a finance firm.
Kevin, were you in the middle of?
No, I
Let's just-
got the
one more.
answer,
Okay.
One more question?
Yeah.
So then, just I know we'll get it from the traffic. The most you would have there is potentially 32 cars parked in there if you had full-on use with the two supervisors. Okay. And there's 45 spaces there?
That's correct. And we did I know Mr. Topper didn't bring it up, but he did investigate. Do you know, with the other two uses in the building, how many employees or staff members they have?
There's about 8 max capacity not max capacity, but the maximum that are there is about 8. And, give or take some of their clients that might come in, another 2 or 3 at a time.
And you'll hear as well from our traffic engineer, it is in her report that I believe they noticed 7 vehicles parked on the site unrelated to this use throughout the day, and then there were a few more cars as Mr. Topper and his staff were visiting the site and all that.
So the 32 is the staff people largely? And then I would expect, though, even though you're going to have people dropping off, right, that you will have some people parking, parents, guardians parking, dropping off. So I think at any given point in time, it would probably be more than 32.
Right, so one of the things that Ms. Fox will speak to is that there's basically probably about 5 or 6 parking spaces that we can even sign as drop-off locations for here that will still fit within that 45 that are on the site without running afoul of all the uses that are there.
And then how many, I'm sorry, it might be in the material, but how many spaces are for the second floor there?
Right, so they have about 7 employees combined between the 2 offices up there. And again, that's consistent with the 7 cars that were witnessed on the site during the day. Again, Ms. Fox will testify to that component as well.
Okay. But legally, those spots do belong to the other businesses if somebody moves out and somebody requiring more people on site,
so
they would have the right to it, or is it part of your lease with the
So where it gets, I guess, since Mr. Topper will ideally be purchasing this site next month, if all goes well in early 2026, as the landlord, that will be worked into the lease that will come up then. Do you know if they have spots allotted in their current lease?
We don't right now.
Okay. Okay. But that would be negotiated.
Sorry, what was that answer? I don't know or no right now.
No, we do not right now.
Okay.
No, you do not, or they do not.
Right. Do you know if the current, the law firm and the hedge fund, if they have dedicated spaces assigned to them as part of their leases?
No, they do not.
Okay.
Okay. Any other board or professional questions? Okay. We'll open it to the public for questions only of Mr. Topper's testimony only. And we have a taker. Okay.
Well, as soon as 50 Beverly Road. Yeah. And we said the second floor has a law firm and a finance firm or something, and they have their own parking spots?
So they don't, I believe, is what we said. That
they don't have
we
their...
do not believe they have some dedicated parking spaces.
So that means that any parking that's there is yours, right?
No, they just don't have dedicated parking.
They just don't have dedicated, okay. So anybody can park there, okay. Do you have a site plan I can see?
Sure.
I know you have the pool parking lot.
Oh, so the aerial that might be better that, yeah, let's wait until you get, if you want to enter it now, we can enter it now. It's, Ms. Fox does have an exhibit. I mean, I'm fine. Ms. Federico, are you fine if we enter it now?
Should we wait until...
It just might help, help the gentleman.
That's the site, this is the site.
Yeah, you can use the site plan right there.
So that'll be Exhibit A3.
This was submitted.
Oh, then we don't need to mark it.
So who is adjacent to you on the other side? What is, the pool is on this side, right?
What direction is that?
We've got north is to the left of the page.
It's east would be the pool, right?
So the pool is up top.
Correct.
Oh, up there.
Would it make more sense maybe when the traffic site engineer comes up? Because I don't think
I don't think this was covered.
Yeah.
All right, I just... Because I was concerned about people dropping off in front on Forest Avenue, blocking Forest Avenue. So will they be able to go into the site and park in there, right?
Yeah, the testimony was that all pickup and drop off will be in signed spaces in front of the building, in the parking lot in front of the building.
Okay, thank you. Other questions I have, we said that this is not a medical office facility now. This is a daycare, child care therapy center. Which one is it? I don't understand which one.
We're not at that point yet.
We don't know.
We're still trying to collect the information to get it.
For us to determine.
You're trying to figure out what you're going to call yourselves, right? Okay. The play area that they're going to have, you said there's going to be one therapist there. Well, if it's one-on-one, shouldn't other therapists be in this play area with each child?
The play area, the indoor play area?
Yeah.
So if there is a child that is utilizing that play area, there will be a therapist with them. If there are multiple children utilizing that play area, there will be multiple therapists with those children.
Yeah,
they are assigned a therapist one-to-one individually.
I saw a large play area.
Mm-hmm.
And when the children are there, there's going to be more than one therapist there, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Are any drugs going to be administered in the case of emergency for any child? Can you do that there?
There are no drugs being administered.
Okay. What would happen if the child has an emergency? How are they going to be taken care of? A seizure or something? I don't know.
We will call 911.
That's it. Okay. You said something about materials. What kind of materials are they going to have?
So it depends on the kid. It could be papers, markers, Lego.
Like teaching materials. That's the only kind of materials, nothing else. Okay.
Yeah.
No physical type of things like, I don't know, if they might need something physical.
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
A brace or something?
No.
Need braces or anything like that?
No.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public questions? Okay.
16 Amelia Court. We are adjacent. Our property is that back parking lot. Our property lines up.
And if you could just
Your name?
state your name for the record, please.
Laura Ahern.
Okay.
So the letter that we received for this variance states you can make comments and/or questions. So I do have a...
If I may, yeah, sorry.
There's a section for public comment at the end of the application. This section is just for questions of Mr. Topper's testimony.
Okay, got it. So we heard today that you are not planning to put an outdoor playground. However, I'm not sure if that means a physical playground with stakes in the ground versus plastic play toys that could be put out and the children would be playing outside.
Sorry, what's the question?
So the question is, you may not be building an official playground. That may not be your plan today.
Mm-hmm.
But would you be, and would the town prevent it from happening, that you know, the plastic playhouses and slides and whatnot that you can purchase for children, would that be placed outside?
At this time, we are not doing that.
So at this time. But there's the potential.
So I can...
Because that would greatly impact.
Sure. So from a legal perspective, I'll answer that question. That's not part of the application to the extent that they are approved and they eventually, a year from now, 5 years from now, would endeavor to have some sort of play area. They would have to come get an approval for that. They could not just, because one of the conditions of this approval, as we stated on the record as well already, would be that there's no outdoor use. So what would happen is if we wanted outdoor use, we'd have to come back to this board and seek to excise that condition.
Okay, so can I ask then why the website clearly states the playground and fresh air and play area outside?
It was an oversight.
Currently, there's a picnic bench and a barbecue. The barbecue abuts the woods behind this office building. I reported it twice. It's not supposed to be there. It's illegal. I want to know if that will be removed. And is there a chance you can move the bench? Because what happens is that's a very, the previous owners of this building, or maybe the current, but the previous occupants of that bottom floor used to sit out there, and it prevented us from being able to enjoy our own property because of the noise level. It seemed to echo in that area. Are you planning to leave the picnic bench there and the barbecue?
I mean, we don't own the space right now.
Okay, so I'd ask the town for that barbecue to be removed. It's a danger, and I've been told by the fire department it's not supposed to be there. It's not zoned for that. I also want to understand that if you don't have current enrollment, you said it's down currently and you don't have the students enrolled, how are you able then to predict the number of children, the drop-off periods, and the hours spent at this facility?
So enrollment is down. I mean, we had a lot more, and now we're down to a specific number, but I predicted it based off of what I have spoken to other business owners that do a very similar business model, what they have seen, and what I've observed going through these sites and seeing it for myself.
During your testimony, the expected number of people went from 60 to, when you were questioned further, to 40 to 50, like the number significantly dropped. So so your only estimates are based on just people you've talked to in the industry?
No, our maximum capacity would be 62 people to be specific, and on average, what we could expect throughout a day could be between 40 to 50.
And you're planning to purchase the building in a month. Are you eventually planning to take over the second floor, so that might...
No, we plan on keeping the 2 tenants there.
But they could leave?
They could.
And you potentially could? Okay. I wanted to understand the offices. I couldn't tell from the diagram. Are those all in that back parking lot? I believe it is, but I wasn't clear.
Across the back wall?
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's the...
Your main entry is facing Ridgewood Ave, correct? Where it's showing main entry?
Yeah.
So therefore, those rear windows on the rear of the space?
The entrance.
No,
The entrance is into the parking lot, which faces towards where your street is.
Okay.
So
So the offices are on, those offices
Forest
front
Ave.
on Ridge.
the offices where the kids will be
Or on Ridge.
currently are facing Ridgewood Ave.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having a little allergy attack here. And there's a lot of windows in that building. We don't have a picture of the building here, but there's a lot of them. Would the windows be open? Will residents like myself be hearing what's going on inside the building?
No.
I mean, to the extent that you opened a window for ventilation,
Yeah.
that's a normal building operation, I would say,
So we could be hearing the kids.
being kids, yes.
I'm wondering if we could get a list of the people that received the certified letter. I think we uncovered a lot of information during this meeting, and I think that there should be an opportunity for other residents, now that there's more information out there, to respond to this.
That's
Would it
all,
be
it's all
possible?
public
Part of
record.
the public notice.
And I would find that where?
If you do an Oprah to the board secretary.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
You could do an Oprah request to the board secretary. It's on,
Oprah request as
yes,
well?
it's on file with the board secretary, or you could go speak to her. I'm sure she has a copy that you could just go to the office and see.
Okay, that's it in terms of questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the public? Okay.
My name is Eric Ahn. I'm at 23 Amelia Court, which is adjacent to the building. I'm not sure if you answered the question, but do all your clients, are they like, I guess, do they have a diagnosis for autism, or do they have to be on the spectrum to be, I guess, get therapy at your...
They have to have an autism diagnosis.
So if you're not diagnosed, you cannot enroll at your...
Correct.
Okay. I guess I ask this question because it just sounds a lot more like daycare / school to me rather than just a therapy center. So if you have like 30 kids that are enrolled, right? How would you? What's to stop? I guess you from all the parents saying, "I want to drop off my kid at 8 o'clock."
Good question.
Because that's like
from insurance,
what a school will kind of run, right?
That's not specific.
The kids will just kind of stay there for 4-6 hours or whatever it is. So how would you accommodate that request?
if all the parents were to request that, we would have to figure out the best way to accommodate it. We would probably have to stagger it and say that we cannot do all at the same time, that we have to stagger it to make sure that we don't have that overflow.
Yeah, because I do have other comments. I mean, they're not specific questions, but I do have 2 and 4-year-olds. I gotta make a left turn out of that Amelia Court every day to go drop off my kid. So I know what the traffic pattern is right around that area. So for you to have like that many people come and drop off kids and things like that at once, I mean, I feel like it could be really problematic. So yeah, I mean, I do have more comments about that. I could reserve that for later on.
Yeah, there'll be an open public comment at the end of the application.
Okay, but yeah, that's all my questions for now.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public questions?
Hi, John Ahern, Amelia Court. My property backs up to the office building also. My question is, as far as your website, it does, one of the things I noticed, it says locations. So if this is your first physical location, I was curious of how would the corporation is structured? Is this a franchise? Do other people own Golden Care locations, or is this?
No, so locations is, we do in-home services outside of New Jersey. So if you look, it doesn't say New Jersey, like it says New York, Indiana, Georgia, Florida, other states.
Oh, like places that you operate? Is that what you mean?
Yes, places
But
that we
not
operate in,
necessarily-
not physical locations.
Okay, that was my
Yeah.
question.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah. Let's just make sure, are we done with the public? That's it for public questions? Okay. One last thought from Jeanette.
Just one question. Who determines how many hours the child is at the facility? Because at one point this gentleman asked, well, if the parents want to leave them there, or a bunch of them want to leave them there for 6 hours a day. My understanding was you have a doctor who says the child is on, gives a diagnosis, and then there's a determination of how many hours based on their age or whatever that they're going to be at the facility. So who is making the determination of how long that child will be spending every day at your facility?
So the insurance company determines how much you are authorized to use of that therapy. But it's up to the parents of how much of that authorization I'm going to utilize, if that makes sense.
So I guess to follow up on Ms. Oginski's question, if somebody was authorized for 30 hours, for example, they could reach out to your facility and say, I'd like Mondays to be 5 hours, Tuesdays to be 3 hours, Wednesdays until you hit that.
Correct.
Okay.
They could also pay out of pocket additional to then what the insurance is providing. Because not saying that, you mentioned before
They
that it
technically
doesn't happen,
can,
but
yeah.
technically, yeah, if, I wanted to double up on it and the family has the ability to do so, they could, increase the scope, to as much as you can accommodate based on their financial means.
Technically, they can.
Okay, thank you. 9 o'clock is normally when we would take a break. Our mayor is here, so between witnesses here, let's hear from our mayor. We'll work in a 5-minute restroom break. If you are going to move about the building, please just keep it down for now. We'll meet with your next witness after the break.
Perfect.
Okay? Mr. Mayor?
I had no idea it would be the intermission.
We had you penciled in earlier. But.
I know. Chairman Centennialo, members of the board, thank you for entertaining me here tonight. I'm on a fact-finding mission. As you may well be aware, the council has been having some discussions on evaluating a joint land use board, which would be, call it a merger between planning and zoning. One of the things we're looking at is input from both the boards on what your thoughts are. And you may be armed to provide that tonight, or you may need some more information from us or the attorney to help you formulate any feedback you may want to provide us. The planning board had a similar discussion at their meeting last week. And we had a way longer discussion than I would have expected. It went on for about an hour, and it was a very thoughtful one. And not to be confused with what this board has to offer. Most on the zoning board, nobody was against it. There was a lot of questions, a lot of things that folks would like answers to. But we're taking our time with this. We're doing due diligence. I'm very well aware this was explored once before, about 10 or 15 years ago, and it did not advance. I think some things are different now than then. What has not changed is the volume of work before the planning board is not great. We're a fully developed town. I wish affordable housing developers would take note of that, but hopefully they're not watching. But their focus really is more on planning, right, than hearing site plan review and other reviews that may come before the board. And the planning board has some great qualities, and this board has some great qualities. You guys focus in a much more judicial manner than the planning board does, which I like and I think is great. It's excellent structure. It provides for an orderly and thorough review of the applicants that come before you. And I think, and as we discussed, that's one of the things I wish there was more of in the planning board. The boards do business very differently, right? The chairman runs the meeting here. Each application, depending upon who chairs what committee, runs the application at the planning board level, which can lead to inconsistencies depending upon somebody's level of experience or tenure on the board. So the reason we're really looking at this is to say, and especially with some of the plans that will come before the borough as we progress in our affordable housing process with the state and the program that we're participating in reviewing our plan, is that the hopes today is that the potential, I'm going to call it a merger of the boards, right? Because we're not looking to eliminate a board or board members. We're looking to create the most qualified and the strongest board that Oradell can have to make sure that there's two things. We're constantly looking at how the town is developed, even though we're fully developed. There are situations where an area may need to be re-envisioned. Things change, right? Part of planning is to account for how to deal with the future, not knowing what the future may be. And the other part is to have a board that understands that plan and the need for the planning so well that it helps them render the best decision when somebody comes before the board for relief or a site plan approval. So I may vary in some of my facts, but I believe the Joint Land Use Board is an 11-member board. 13, 9 regular members and up to 4 alternates. 2 of the members, the Class 1 member and the Class 2 member, are the mayor and a council person. Neither of those people can vote on D1 variances. They have to step off the dais, and the board, in essence, reverts back to a 7-member board to hear those. They can participate in all other matters, but, we think that this potentially also can be a better experience for the applicant. And the applicant could be a resident. In most cases it is. But in some cases it's not, as a commercial entity is here before you this evening. We're always we're always figuring how to strive to serve the residents better. Unfortunately for Steve, his office is one of the main points of contact with borough government. Sometimes people meet with favorable review, other times they don't, and I think simply that's because they don't understand the process or the steps that they have to go through when they're dealing with a renovation application and or needing to come before the board. I know it's minimal, but there is a chance that somebody may have to go before both boards to get an approval for something. The chances for that, I think, have greatly diminished since we are have just finished or will be finishing raising the quantity for soil moving, right? So we went up to 500 cubic yards before an application has to come for the board. Prior to that, it's just reviewed with Steve and the borough engineer. But we're looking at this from a forward-looking, positive perspective. I have great respect for both boards, and I want to thank you all for volunteering to serve and for the time that you spend. The biggest question I think that came up really related around that commitment and time commitment. And will the board have to meet more than we require the board to meet right now? You guys know better than the planning board because it happens more often here. Sometimes you have to schedule special meetings to be able to move a larger application along. I don't know how often the joint board would have to meet. I would say perhaps it might start once a month, but it might have to meet twice a month. And I think that depends on the caseload that's before the board at the time. From a planning perspective, the statutory review for a master plan reexamination is approximately every 10 years. So it's not like you're engaged in that work every single year. What else am I leaving out? I don't know. I guess it's a good time to open it up to you guys if you have any questions that I can answer and have any discussion. I plan on updating the council tomorrow in our meeting about discussions that we've had at the planning board and here tonight. And we're not acting on this right now. We're in the fact-finding stage. But depending upon how things go, this could be something the council brings before itself early next year.
Anyone?
I mean, just I'll make one quick comment. I'm assuming this is all prompted with what we see in the future. Like you said, it's forward thinking, and with the affordability, the affordable housing requirement. My initial thought and gut, I think I have to kind of go through more, but I think removing boards or maybe diluting them is not the right word. It might not be the best course of action. Maybe you should be just looking at more procedures because I think we want more volunteers and more people from the town that want to provide input and are willing to put their time in than maybe necessarily just looking to expedite certain applications. But I understand the complexities that come through when you have larger site plan applications that are going to take more than maybe a 15-minute deck edition, and you need to have special meetings or run to midnight to get through because you have specific consultants that need to get through and that you need to see them. So there's a balance between the understanding of those applications, being able to serve them properly, but at the same time I think it's also good to have the most pool of people that are willing to volunteer their time, that truly have the care to Oradell and want to see it move forward in a better picture. But I see all those points that there is a major challenge in scheduling and getting everybody's personal and work to align with all the other professionals that need to come present and be here. But that's just my initial thought. I think that collective group thought and discussion is always good. So when you have separate boards now that's looking at two separate different items, they can focus on their expertise. When it comes in all as one, you may lose it, but again it does strengthen it because you might be able to pick the right individuals that can deliberate and really hone in on the most important factors of the meeting.
I'd just like to add to that. I mean, from what I've seen, and I'm fairly new relative to a lot of people on the board, but one case in particular that I think the planning board was involved with early on was the Madeline housing project, that because it also had to come before this board, and it took quite a bit of testimony back and forth, the end result, I think, was a better product because there were, a lot of the residents of the town who had issues with it were able to, voice a lot of opinion. And I think it was somebody on the board suggested, minor changes which actually wound up being beneficial to both the housing project and to the residents of the town. Whereas if that was a combined board who was, maybe initially just overly worried about our state burden and not having taken the additional time to listen to the residents, something like that may not have gotten done. So, that was just one example. And again, I'm new with this where I think, maybe a segregation is good. That being said, moving forward, how the town acts consistently in terms of enhancing our rules, that we can't get arbitrage between two boards. I think, to protect the town, there's opportunity on both sides. So.
Yeah, maybe a few other thoughts, unless.
No, I got to ask a few questions at the council meeting a couple of weeks ago. So just in the interest of keeping this application going, I'll pass it on.
Yep. So, I think there were a lot of factors on kind of both sides of the fence. I do think that having a joint board would be helpful. I could imagine it being more helpful for our residents, move things, through the process quicker. I do envision that the workload of maybe this board for sure is going to go up in the future. If you think about everything that's happening around our affordable housing commitments, so I think that would be helpful. Having joint knowledge, I think, is very helpful. If you're sitting and you understand the master plan better, I think that would help us do our job better, although there are other ways that, we could also accomplish that. And then I think having one board would minimize the ability of, if that were to ever happen, applicants gaming, right? Which board do I want to, which board do I want to go in front of?
Yeah, so it's funny you raise that, because that was one example I forgot to give you, and that happened recently.
Like America, right?
Yep. What is it, 420?
420.
Kinderkamack Road, you're all very familiar with. They were before you. Thought that, this was not the path of least resistance, so let's game our application and let's change it and let's switch boards. And the other board is a little less judicious than this one, and with that change, we'll make some sacrifices, but it'll probably be easier to get it through. Right. And it was, and the things that they made changes for, most of the variances they requested were de minimis variances, so it was very tough for the board to be able to say, we have a great reason for denying you relief from 2 feet extra above the maximum height that's allowable for the building in the zone. I was not here when that application was voted on. I was away, unfortunately. But I did sit and watch the rest of the testimony that went on. And the one thing I can say is, and there's been a little controversy about whether or not, that was a good application to be approved, or did we give too much away too easily? With a joint board, there's no gaming. The board's the board. So again, looking at this from how do we strengthen our ability to deal with the land use challenges that come before the municipality, the intent in which we're exploring this really emanated from how to best position us to, administer fair zoning ordinances and a plan, and then having, the best qualified board be able to then be the judges of whether or not relief is necessary in certain instances because there's a hardship or there's another legal factor that allows for relief.
Right.
But that was, thank you for bringing that up. That was a situation that, was unfortunate. But
And I think, though, again, whether you fix this by combining the boards or fix it otherwise, I don't think there should be significant differences in the level of due diligence or questioning or analysis that's done between the two boards. Now, if you had one combined board, then, that if that ever was an issue, that goes away also. I think on the flip side, the things that I think about are, I think from a governance perspective, I think it's always better to have a level of independence. Now, maybe that's just the way my mind thinks and my background, right? But to me, it's the setup that we currently have, where we have our elected officials making our laws, right? Zoning, land use laws, and then a separate body, this body, looking at the more material variances. That to me makes sense, is akin to where we see government also. And now in the planning board, right, there are, you have 2 elected officials, I think 1 employee. So I think and I'm not saying that anyone lacks independence, current or past, but I just think it's just a better setup. And we'd never be criticized, right? If someone wanted to look at us in an unhelpful way and say that someone made a decision based on political motivations. Understanding that probably the most material variance, I guess, the D1 variance is probably the most material variance you have to step away from.
Correct.
So I think that's good. So I personally, I think my thinking about it a little bit, I would suggest we leave the structure as is, but fix it where we need to, making sure there's good connectivity between the 2 boards, making sure that there isn't kind of a disparate level of analysis between the 2 boards, things of that nature. But if we can't get the work done because we don't have enough people, that trumps everything in my mind. So, and we need to be able to get the work done.
You mentioned the committee members are part of it. What members of the committee, or what's as part of the board? There was the 2 council member and mayor, and you said there were some other members that were...
One is a borough employee, a Class 3 member.
Okay. And they could be just a Class 3 that classifies as...
An employee of the borough.
Any type of employee. And it could be in the clerk's office, or it doesn't have to be in a specific department?
Correct. So in this instance, currently, the administrator is the employee that's assigned to the planning board. In the past, it's been the DPW director.
Yep.
I think it was the clerk at one point. I think it's rotated around.
Does the planning board actually have like a, sometimes when we discuss things here where you would potentially want input, like from a traffic and safety officer, from the police department and or a fire official, is that also part of the planning board, or we just say we submit to state code and?
No. The boards operate very similarly. You can receive testimony from experts.
Mm-hmm.
We can receive advice from our borough professionals and our borough employees. There's really not a material difference in how the board operates, except you guys are really solely charged with the ability to grant relief from the zoning ordinances.
Yeah.
But the structure of the meeting is genuinely the same.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I mean, for years, I've been against the merger of the boards, and a few times it's come up. And my main reason for changing that is getting qualified people on the board that last over time. They need to be educated. I think there's more knowledge in the planning board because you do have a mayor and a councilman, a borough employee. They're aware of the master plan. Not everybody on the zoning board knows the master plan in depth. The board, if they're merged, I mean, it's still, you have zoning board variances that come up. I've spoken to other municipalities. I also do River Edge. They're a merged board. I think with the one board, I think they're more in tune to not only the master plan, but the ordinances, the requirements the borough needs, and the professionals are always there. But you need dedicated people. My main objection, not merging, is it's very difficult for us to get people notifying, attending the meetings. I mean, we've had applicants that would have to go to the next meeting because we didn't have a quorum. They had their professionals there, and you have a larger board on the planning board. You have more ability to have input from the volunteers, but I think the volunteers need to be dedicated in either sense. But we had the last borough zoning board attorney that had numerous towns, and he said a lot of them were merged. He didn't see an issue with those. He says they worked well, but it all comes upon the dedication to the members if they're going to be attending and doing their due diligence.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, just in closing, I would say any further questions you may have or comments that you may want to share, if you can do that through Mr. Depkin's office and he can get them over to us. This is a dialogue we're having, right? I'm not sitting here professing that the council's doing something and this is how we're moving forward. Your attorney, Mr. Liebman, also represents the Rivervale, which is a joint board. I'm sure your counsel can provide any answers and their experience to you from his direct experience that he has. And I didn't really lead with this because it's insignificant in why to do it, but obviously there's an efficiency of cost savings in the end as well. It's not the reason that you make the decision, in my opinion, but it is something that is real. And when you're looking at tight budgets and everybody wanting to be able to control the affordability of living here, you have to look at all these things. So if it works for the right reasons, there's also a little bit of icing on the cake. But if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But that's why we're out here soliciting your feedback, talking to you about it, and having an open dialogue. So I want to thank you for having me here this evening and
thanks for
entertaining me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone on the board need a bio break? I mean, if we give it 4 minutes and say we'll start back up at 9:30, is that good? Okay. 4 minutes.
Hey, did you get your son's car fixed?
Yeah, maybe they didn't hear me.
I found
Yeah. Oh, okay. Be right back.
I don't even have drawers. Somebody stuck some stuff in here though. Cheat sheet. This looks like a short. What is this doing? Oh, yeah.
That's just
Looks like it's putting like or something.
Are they still out? Someone leave you a goodie?
No, nothing good.
Hmm.
Just paper,
paper.
cheat sheets,
Hmm.
no snacks.
Found the whole pizza in there.
Oh, then you can walk right across the street.
If I take a quick job,
Again, give you one excuse.
Alrighty. All right, we're back in. Thank you. Thank you for the accommodation with our schedule.
Sure. We're back on the record?
Yep, we're back on the record.
Great. So with that, Chair and members of the board, my next witness is Justine Fox, our civil and traffic engineer.
If you could just raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you're about to present tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And can you please state your name and your last name and give your
Sure.
business address?
Business address is 92 Park Avenue, Rutherford, New Jersey. Name's Justine Fox. I am a project manager with Stonefield Engineering.
And if you could qualify her.
Yes. So Justine, if you can please give the board the benefit of your educational and professional background and the status of your license in the state.
Sure. I received my Bachelor's of Science in Civil and Environmental Engineering from the University of Maryland. I have over 9 years of experience in land use in the state of New Jersey, and have worked on about a dozen projects such as the one you're seeing here tonight, and daycares in general. This, this one is a little specific, but I have worked on, the use office businesses and specifically medical offices within a general office building.
And Justine, your license as an engineer and traffic engineer is currently here this evening?
Correct.
Okay, and you've been accepted by other boards throughout the state as an expert in such fields?
Correct.
We can accept you as an expert witness.
Thank you. All right, so Justine, why don't we start, since I know there's, you're qualified as a civil engineer, but there's really no site changes proposed. So let's dive right into the traffic. So if you can...
Excuse me, are you going to be using the computer, the monitors?
Do you want me to pull up the site plan?
Yeah, how about
Yeah, do you want to switch?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yes. They have to have a picture on it first.
We will.
I think it just went to sleep.
The video goes away, the computer goes off. So it has to be up all the time.
Wait, so how do we turn the TVs back on?
I will do that once you get that
got it.
signal.
Thank you.
You just have to keep on...
Moving the mouse. Yep.
Oh, so if it goes in power save mode, everything's going to shut down. Okay.
We're back.
There we go.
On my end.
Not yet. He's got to go downstairs first.
Got to crank the engine.
Do you have to click something or?
I don't know.
Oh, there it is.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right,
Thanks,
so
Nick.
Justine, why don't you walk us through, again, high level, the site conditions, and then walk us through the anticipated trip generation, site circulation, and expected parking utility.
Sure. So the property is located at the northeasterly corner of Forest Avenue and Ridgewood Avenue. On the page here, although Forest Avenue runs north and south, it's running page left and right. Ridgewood Avenue is shown as page up and down, but that does run east and west. Both roads are under the Bergen County jurisdiction, and the site is accessed via Forest Avenue of a right-in, right-out driveway, and via Ridgewood Avenue of a full movement driveway. As previously mentioned, there's an existing office building on site. There's about 5,500 square feet of office space on each floor, and on site there are 45 parking spaces. The existing drive aisles on site are 24 feet wide, standard of an office building facility, and there's two-way circulation on and off site. Now, for what we're proposing here today, we did run a trip generation comparison using the ITE, that's the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual, just to kind of have a general understanding of what a child care facility trip generation looks like compared to a typical office use. In general, ITE kind of sets a threshold of when a change in traffic is significant, and that's about 50 trips an hour. Our trip generation is pretty similar. At most, we're seeing a change in about 23 trips, assuming this is operates like a child care facility. The way trips are measured is you think of it as sort of like a line on the driveway. And every time a vehicle crosses that line, it counts as a trip. So in this case, when a student is dropped off by the parent and the vehicle crosses into the driveway, that is one trip. When the parent meets the operator, the student is brought inside, and the parent completes their drop-off and leaves the site, even though that one vehicle, that counts as two trips because the parent is coming onto site and leaving the site.
Can you blow that up a little bit?
Sure, I can zoom in on. Center it out. As previously mentioned, this would operate as a drop-off pickup facility, so parents would not be anticipated to linger on site. They would likely pull into the property. They would not drop off along either of the public roadways. The main entrance to the building is located within the parking lot. It is our intention to designate a space or two for drop-off pickup, so that there's no confusion of where parents would need to meet, of where the therapist would be coming outside to be meeting the patients. And again, parents are not anticipated to remain on site. Now, in terms of parking, as discussed, the maximum, I'll go into the two different parkings we'd anticipate on site. There's the maximum that can be on site at a time, which was previously stated about 30 students. It's 1-to-1, so that's 60 people. But again, these students are not driving on the site. So at most, you would anticipate 30 vehicles if all therapists are driving themselves, as well as the 2 additional staff members. That brings the parking demand of the facility proposed here today to 32 spaces. The site has 45 spaces. Based on counts conducted by our office on 2 separate occasions, we saw at most about 11 vehicles on site, but that did include a few vehicles from the operator today who was on site at the time of the parking count. We did parking counts at 4:40 p.m. on Wednesday, December 4th. At that time, there were 7 vehicles on site. So there was an abundance of available parking spaces on site that this facility would be able to utilize when operating. And that 7 vehicles on site is very consistent with the testimony and our understanding that the 2 existing office spaces in the upstairs floor, the existing law firm and financial firm has about 3 to 4 employees each. So on site today, of these 45 spaces, only about 7 are being used. With our maximum operations, that would allow for about 5 spaces on site, 5 to 6 spaces on site to be used for drop-off pickup, for any visitors to the site, at our maximum operations. However, as previously said, that maximum might only be for an hour or two a day, maybe even a few hours a week, if each day there's a little bit of a different scheduling based on the one-to-one appointment-based operations presented here tonight. If on average there's about, I believe it was testified, 40 to 50 people on site, that's really 18 to 28 patients and 18 to 28 therapists. So that allows for additional parking availability on site. So in my professional opinion, the site today can operate with no issues in terms of parking, and allows for that pickup drop-off for therapists to park on site and for that existing office space to continue to use those spaces today. I believe the parking requirement for office spaces is 1 space per 250 square feet. So based on our about, if it's 5,500 per floor, about 1,000 square feet of office space, we are looking at a parking requirement of 44 spaces. There are 45 spaces on site today. So as an office building, as well as a medical office use, which the site does allow for, the existing parking spaces meet the parking requirement.
Can I ask you a couple of follow-up questions? So I know you mentioned, and this is where, perhaps some of the confusion was. I know Akiva gave great testimony as to how this is, medical in nature and insurance provided and by appointment and all that. So with respect to the traffic and the parking, being that this is not a child care center that you might otherwise see, and being that this really is an appointment-based service, are you comfortable knowing that since appointments can be scheduled, drop-offs and pickups can be staggered to be accommodated within those, 5 to 6 spaces that you referenced would be left vacant?
Correct.
Okay, so again, unlike a typical facility where, and I'm just going to use my own kids as an example, I pay to start dropping off my kids at 8:45 every morning. I'm never there by 8:45, and it's usually 9 o'clock, and there's a mad rush at the facility. That would not happen here because these are truly appointment-based, and they're governed by insurance authorizations to when you can drop off your kid and when you can pick up your kid.
Correct.
And then furthermore, it's your understanding from speaking to the operator that like any other appointment-based operation, there is control. So for example, if there were already 5 drop-offs scheduled for Wednesdays at 8 a.m., they would have the ability to say to a parent, you can't do drop-off until 8:15 because we're maxed out at the 8 o'clock slot.
Correct.
Okay, so to sum that all up, would it be your opinion, professionally as a traffic engineer, that unlike a typical child care facility and more like an appointment-based operation like a medical facility, there's a built-in control mechanism for on-site traffic and circulation?
Correct, and especially for the pickup, I think daycare facilities, you really see maybe more of waves as parents might leave their offices at 4:30 or 5:30 and they're arriving at similar times. With this, the operation ends by 5 p.m. and all those appointments would be ending staggered. You know what time you have to go there to pick up your child. And unlike daycare where drop off, the parent gets there, you have to find the kid, this would be more structured. You know when your allotted time slot would end and the parent would be there to pick up the patient.
Okay, thank you. And and I think you had an exhibit as well just to generally identify the area.
Sure, there were a few questions about where we are in relation to everything within Oradell. So
okay, just before you do that, let's mark this and we'll call it A3, I believe we're up to. And if you could just identify what this is on the screen and the date and who prepared it.
Sure. This is an aerial exhibit prepared by my office dated today.
Good with A3?
Yeah.
All right.
And if you could send me all the exhibits.
Sure.
Thanks.
So we are located just to the west of the swim club that was mentioned. That is a private facility. Again, our parking can be contained on site, so that is not intended to be used. And then Amelia Court is just north of our property.
All right, thank you. That's all the direct examination I have for Ms. Fox at this time.
Okay. Caroline?
Sure, thank you. You might have heard from the public asking questions of the last witness. There was a gentleman from the audience who commented that he lived on Amelia Court and that the traffic is very bad in the morning taking his children. I think he said maybe his children to school or somewhere. Oh, sorry. My mic was off. Sorry, so I'll start again. I'll start again. I'll start again. So there was, I'll rephrase. So there was someone from the audience who commented about traffic from Amelia Court in the morning taking his children to school. Do you, as a traffic expert, have any comments on that with respect to this application and any potential impacts?
So I believe that I can be corrected, I believe he specifically said making a left onto Forest is difficult. However, here there is only a right in, right out driveway onto and off of Forest Avenue. Again, that's under Bergen County jurisdiction. I'm assuming that they've looked at this site. This is designed to make it extremely difficult to make that illegal left back onto the southbound of Forest Avenue with those angled driveway positions. So in my professional opinion, the benefit here of the right in, right out driveway is you would have to, if you were going to Forest Avenue, you would have to exit onto Ridgewood Avenue and use the light. It's a signalized intersection there, so there is a light to make your movements onto or off of Forest Avenue. So it's compared to the conditions in Amelia Court, this location is safer in that aspect from a traffic standpoint.
Okay. And so there wouldn't be any negative impact from the proposed or anticipated use that would further detriment what he's describing, this, because there was a member of the public concerned about that.
Right, left queuing.
Right.
Yeah.
No, so you cannot turn left from Forest Avenue. You would have to turn left at Ridgewood Avenue. The roadway is very wide. Again, the traffic is very similar to the existing use today that is an office building. So in my professional opinion, no. The site has been designed to accommodate that level of traffic.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay. Dave?
Sure. So I know you had talked about trip generation,
Sure.
and you focused on morning and evening peaks.
Yeah.
Can you give the board a little more information and the public, like what exactly do you mean by morning peak and evening peak?
Sure. So typically for a new application, what a traffic engineer's role is to study both the roadway conditions as well as the conditions in and out of your proposed, or in this case, existing driveways. Typically, we're going to look at the busiest times of days of a roadway, which is going to be your morning and evening, what's commonly known as rush hour, and what we refer to as peak hour. The peak hour studies one individual hour during that time, and we then compare it to what the use of the site is. For that, ITE, that's the Institute of Transportation Engineers, they're collecting data from across the country on close to 100 different land uses, and they come up with data points and criteria, and from that we can estimate what a facility is anticipated to generate traffic, meaning vehicles in and out of the site. So a typical office building we looked at just the size of the first floor for our comparison, was about 7 vehicles in, 1 vehicle out. I do want to note that the second floor is is almost identical in size, and that 7 in, 1 out during the morning and 1 in, 7 out is almost identical with the operations that are known upstairs, with about 7 employees on a given day at those 2 offices. Did I answer your question?
So I guess what's the actual like time period?
Okay, so typically, yeah.
AM would be what?
AM would be 7 to 9 a.m. PM's usually studied 4 to 7 p.m. In this case, because the change of traffic was not significant, we did not do specific traffic counts at the intersection because it would operate as it's always been approved to operate as.
So it's fair to say, so the proposed change from office to whatever we're calling it, we'll call it daycare, really it'll have negligible impact as far as the streets there.
Correct.
And that's based off of ITE, which is saying, if I heard correct in your testimony, if it generates 50 or greater, then that would be considered significant.
Correct. ITE listed around 50. The New Jersey Department of Transportation listed about 100 vehicles per intersection. So it's between that 50 and 100 where you would possibly see a difference. Anything above that, and again, it's where you may see a difference, not necessarily a traffic impact.
Okay. And again, ITE is kind of the gospel per se of
Correct.
traffic engineering.
Correct.
Fair enough. And then so in your report it says, so essentially at the peak AM and PM as it sits today is 8 for both, 8 in the morning, 8 in the afternoon, and the increase or the proposed change is going to be 28.
Yeah, so for our proposed use, we did compare the maximum students, so that's the 30 students of a daycare facility in that IT use. As we mentioned, this is not necessarily a typical daycare where parents are dropping their kid off before heading to work. This is appointment-based. Those 30 students would not be there necessarily all day. So this was just the closest industry standard we could utilize for this analysis. In reality, these numbers may be accurate, but at a daycare, you're seeing, most people are arriving when they're scheduled to arrive, in terms of when they're on their way to work. Here, you're scheduled to arrive based on your appointments. So it is a little bit different, but I think in general, these trips are what we would anticipate for.
Would this be more conservative approach, just from the standpoint that a daycare typically it's going to be morning, you're dropping off, and PM you're picking them up, as opposed to, if I'm hearing your testimony correct, you're dropping off at specific times. I mean,
this is conservative in that it's using the maximum 30 students.
And also the daycare use as opposed to
Yes,
an appointment-based.
and the daycare is typically every single day, whereas this is mentioned, every student might not be there every day.
That's fine. And then as far as thank you for giving the testimony as far as the restrictions on movement. I think that's important just from a safety perspective, given the higher volume on Forest Avenue and the fact that it's right in, right out. As far as the site circulation, I know your testimony indicated that there'll be designated parking spots on site. Is there any concern as far as stacking on site or queuing on site as the site's situated today?
No, I don't believe there would. The door is located about as the main entrance to the building is located about as far as you can be from either road. Again, there is an operational manager on site who would be able to schedule appointments. So there would never be all drop-offs occurring at once that could ever occur queuing onto the public right of way.
Okay. I know it's not designated at this point. Any idea which spaces would be the designated locations?
Probably close to the door. Just, these are children, so be able to, walk right onto the sidewalk and into the main entrance. And at most, I think only 1 or 2 spaces would be designated for drop-off.
Okay. I know you talked about the tenants upstairs and there being roughly 7 cars generated by that. That's based on the people that are there today. Is it fair to say a different office use could go in there in the future? Could that generate additional parking demands for the site?
While it could, the average per ITE for that square footage is what was seen on site today. The office space is only so big, you're only going to have so many employees in a small office space.
Right, but I guess that's for trip generation you're talking about with the 7, but like based on, if you did it based off of the town code, you know, the office space upstairs, it's 5,500, and if it's one space per 250, that would mean upstairs would have 22 spaces, the lower level would have 22.
So ITE does also have a manual based on parking generation that's based on number of criteria, either on square footage or number of employees. The square footage, the average parking rate for offices is about 1.75 vehicles per 1,000 square feet. So it is possible that a different office may have a higher parking rate. However, you are meeting the parking requirements.
I guess, Justine, is that also consistent with your testimony that you know, both Ridgewood and Forest have the ability to they have mass transit options as well?
Correct.
Right on the streets as well, which may.
Correct.
Yeah.
There are multiple bus stops located right along Forest and Ridgewood Avenue. If you know the area is accessible, you do not necessarily need to just park on the site as an employee.
So to Dave's point, to Mr. Atkinson's point, that takes into account, you know, the max possible worst case scenario, not necessarily what happens in practicality.
That's your like peak. Usually it'll have around, for an office building, you typically count maybe around 11 a.m. when everyone's in the office. You might have clients on site. So that's taken, that's that ITE rate.
Could I just maybe amplify what I think David was saying before? Our code, right? If this was a new application and someone was coming before, you know, our planning zoning board, you'd need to have 22 spaces for the upstairs. That's what our code says, because that's what we expect for that kind of space in this area.
Downstairs.
Yeah, so you look at the whole square footage, not necessarily by floor. And the entire square footage is that 44 spaces for the whole site. And it's all average based. So in general, that's how you get those average rates. It is very typical that one office space might just have one employee, and downstairs might be a little more crowded, so they're using more. But in general, that parking requirement are based on averages.
And one thing, Ms. Day, I want to add to that, because again, it's from the prior resolution when the building was approved to be constructed. It contemplated exactly that and said that no variance was needed because for the totality of the square footage, 45 spaces met, and it still does meet the parking requirement for the building.
Right, but I think, you know, where David was going, and I have the same question, and I understand your observation at those two separate points based on the people who are currently in the space, seven cars, which doesn't sound like a lot. But, you know, that's based on who's currently occupying the space. In the future, it could be different. And, you know, it's approved, at least if you were to do it on a per floor basis, it could be 22.
And the good thing with that as well is, as the owners of the property who will then be issuing the leases, they could include that in the lease, right? And you're entitled to 4 parking spaces for your office use up there. And, you know, if I'm a prospective tenant who has 25 employees who are going to be driving, that might not be the right office space for me.
And I might have missed it, but have they gone to contract? Is that closing? My understanding
I believe it's closing. I believe it's in contract pending. It's in contract, right? I mean, yeah, it's in contract. Yes, yes.
And I mean, I can, like our space that we lease, I will tell you, our lease agreement does have similar conditions of that, depending on the square footage in the building.
Mm-hmm.
So, but obviously, I understand a concern. I figured that question would come up, so that's why I kind of.
And
Right,
further to that
I
point,
guess
that's,
maybe to take it further, as I was saying before, there is no parking on Forest and Bridgewood. The closest municipal parking is what? Maybe Doug Parcells, maybe? Which is a far walk.
No, that's just for, that's just the facility.
Okay, so there's no municipal parking in the vicinity.
Correct.
Right, so then if there was not enough parking, then people would park on, the residential court behind, or maybe park at the swim club, and neither of those scenarios is desirable for the residents.
Not permitted.
Not permitted.
right. So I think what's operative is whichever use it's classified as, it holistically, the site meets the parking requirements, and it was constructed to meet the parking requirements. So I guess what the board has the ability to do is impose a condition, for example, that says, like what I suggested, right, is if you're going to own the property, you put in your lease saying the upstairs is entitled in totality to 7 or 8 spaces or whatever we said. That's a viable condition, and that is something, to Mr. Atkinson's point, is often seen in commercial leases.
Can I just ask one other question? If this is, go back the other way, a medical facility, is there enough or handicap parking made available here required?
I mean, I don't know if you want to give testimony on it as far as ADA. The question is, the 45 spots today, I believe there's one ADA spot. Is that compliant with the ADA requirements?
So if this were a new site with 45 spaces, 2 parking spaces would be required, ADA compliant spaces. But it's an existing parking lot. We are not
Required to.
modifying any of the parking spaces on site. It could be restriped if that's something the board was interested in requiring.
To make the 2 spaces.
Correct.
So yeah, I mean, so they got their approval back in the 80s, so things have kind of changed from that time period, but
But now we're repurposing a building, and whether or not it should require that, I mean, that's, I'm asking whether legally we would have to be reconsidered because you're repurposing the building. It's no longer an
again, I
office.
think they're offering it up. I don't think it's an issue as long as they can accommodate.
It's only 2.
additional one.
Okay, I thought it would potentially be higher, but if it's 1 or 2, no reason to talk about it.
And then as far as the site, I don't know if it was part of your testimony, but as far as ADA accessible, is the site, were you able to review the site from that condition? Does it meet the requirements?
I did look. There is the space there. It's striped out. It is van accessible. That is what I reviewed.
Okay. And as far as access to the building, is there a ADA accessible ramp from the parking lot to get into the building?
I believe there are 2 ramps as shown here on the site plan, and this curb is flush. We would need to confirm the exact grades at this time.
Okay. But it does at least have the ramps there today.
Yes, it does.
And wheelchair accessibility for it. Okay. Fair enough. I have no other questions.
Would that be legally, though, required if it becomes a school or a medical facility? Because it's again, you're rezoning an office building to a...
It's something we could ask for. Being they're not making any changes to the site, I would say
no. Okay.
Say no, but if they were going to do improvements to it, then I would say
yes.
But again, if that's something that the board wanted, I think we could request that too. It would be within your purview.
Okay.
I have a question. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, we're still working through the professionals.
Yeah. Your professional opinion, most of the ingress, egress would be from Ridgewood Avenue?
They both are county roads. Ridgewood Avenue does provide more movement options. It would really just depend on where clients are coming from, but based on the movements allowable, maybe a slightly more coming in and out of Ridgewood.
Would you see an issue with that?
No, again, the site has been designed for those movements.
Good. That's all I have.
Okay. Danielle?
And you
I
can
have-
make a
I have no
left-hand
question.
turn out of, if you're coming east on Ridgewood Avenue, you can make a left-hand turn into that building?
Yes.
I think the biggest complication might be just if you have, depending on the time, a long queue of you're trying to make a left, but the light hasn't turned, that you might be queuing, just waiting for someone to break through. But that's just like an hour basis. Probably only happens in the morning. My main concern would
5
be
o'clock in
me,
the
someone on
afternoon.
Forest, trying to bypass, making a left onto Ridgewood if they're traveling south, to kind of cut into the Forest Avenue one and not wait to make a left onto Ridgewood to then make a left into the other entry. From there, they may want to try to quickly cut it off there. I don't know if there's a sign that says no left-hand turn.
Yeah, there is.
There is. So then if that sign's already there, then
And if you
you
see
just,
this- if you
you have to make sure the people coming don't ignore that sign, but that's not nothing. we
Yeah, but
can-
if you see the site plan, the divider.
Yeah, you have to
on
do a
Forest
funky
Ave-
move. Yeah,
Yeah.
But somebody, if you're trying to rush to drop your kid off and you see 10 cars making a left and then there's nowhere to go,
No one I know has ever broken traffic laws, ever.
you may debate trying to make that quick turn in
Or
there.
admitted to it.
That's the only thing that I see. But if there's an existing sign that deters it and you have already the separation, but that's the only thing that I think could be on a circulation issue.
Yeah, the orientation of that really, it's intended to force them to go to the right, to make it uncomfortable making that left.
And there is a designated left turn lane on Forest Avenue to Ridgewood.
Yeah. Okay, board questions. Since we cut off Vincent before, let's let him go.
Sure. So, when you did this, or this parking and traffic study is based on the proposed use as a therapy care facility, correct? Or is it for a general daycare facility?
So our trip generation did utilize the ITE child care facility. What ITE does is they study child care facilities across the country, and they all might have slightly different operations. It was the closest use that we could have with the drop-off pickup situation.
Okay. I guess my question is more if this were a more traditional daycare facility, would there be any concerns about the peak hour traffic? Because I think, as you mentioned, the nature of the proposed use mitigates this with the appointment times.
Right.
But if we were to approve this as a daycare facility and a new tenant comes in, will they need to see the board to operate as a daycare facility if someone new comes in? Right, so I'm concerned.
If it's staying the same and they've got their approvals, then no. If they're changing something other than what's permitted through the resolution, then they would.
So I think if I may, that's actually, I think, a very great point that you made, whether I'm sure you intended to do it, but I think that's what separates this and why we feel it's more of a medical use, right? If this was a traditional daycare, which I think everybody agrees a traditional daycare requires D1 use variance before this board. So if a different operator came in, let's say, Golden Care operated here for 5 years and left the space for whatever reason, and a traditional child care center came in, arguably granting this to be considered right now as a child care facility might foreclose you from being able to review future child care facilities just under a different name, whereas considering this a medical facility means anything that's not that down the road, if it is a child care facility, has to come to this board for use variance relief, where you would review the operations, which probably would look very different than this.
Again, I got to state that the state says it's a daycare.
Their use of qualification is that their operation is a daycare. It's not.
Correct.
governance of
Yeah.
that.
You're not making a decision on whether it's therapy or not. It's a
Their
daycare
classification
center.
is a day.
If I may, though, I think we do need to look into, like, the International Building Code and the zoning code are two different codes. So zoning is one thing, the International Building Code is another separate regulatory body. And not to say they don't have to comply with that, but I do think that zoning is separate from that. And that's where I think we do need to look into it. I need to look into it further personally, but I think there needs to be a distinction between the building code and the International Building Code, as well as the New Jersey Building Code, and what those requirements are for the build out, which could be more stringent than what does your zoning say, what's permitted, what is a daycare under zoning versus what may be a daycare under the International Building Code. Because I like personally, I had some concerns with the International Building Code as I read it. Then I'm like, is a dance studio a daycare?
No.
But as I read it, I'm like, it meets all those requirements of there's being kids there. So I think I have some confusion where I want to look into it further. And I'm not saying that you certainly have to comply with the International Building Code. I just think that the zoning code, which is this board's jurisdiction, versus the International Building Code and the state building code, which they still have to comply with, but that's for Mr. Depkin to enforce with permits and all that. So I do want some time personally to like look into that, but I just want there to be that distinction.
Yeah, it would be great. And I had the same thing that Vincent just asked. I have written down here. You know, would the parking analysis and the traffic impact analysis be the same if this were a traditional daycare? And if we designate it as zoned for a daycare facility, we open ourselves up to whatever the answer to that might be. It would be great if, I mean, obviously we're not going to finish today. It would be great if, for the next time we get together, if you were able to get a human from the state to you know, not just the code but an actual human from the state to tell us whether this is a daycare or a medical facility. Because there are, the dance studio is a great example. I can think of a bunch of others, ice skating, any kind of sports, you know, where kids put in long hours. So yeah, I mean, that would be helpful. But yeah, I was going to ask that same question. Sorry. Any other board questions?
If that were the case, that we don't have clarity on that answer, which is going to be difficult to do this without, but in the event, if we do go down the daycare route and we don't meet that, would you be able to have enough restrictions on it's an appointment daycare where there can't be more than certain drop-offs per hour or something?
I will say I think that's something that's difficult to enforce in the future.
Right.
You know, once people get in there, then things happen. So I think the use itself is easier to regulate personally, but Mr. Depkin can certainly speak. If that's easy for him to regulate, then we can put, as long as there are reasonable conditions, we can certainly put reasonable conditions in there that could regulate it. I just don't know the capacity for the office to be able to regulate, like.
Well, I think it would speak to anybody else signing a lease on the building later on.
Oh, as far as a lease on the upstairs?
Well, again,
you
if
could
this
certainly-
particular group tends not to care to operate there anymore, and, you know, it is now zoned a daycare, it's an appointment daycare, you know, which would have, you know, then you would have to have them come back to the board to do something else.
I mean, you could certainly require there to be restrictions in the lease as far as parking. Again, I just think sometimes that's a little difficult to enforce. But we can look into it. As long as there are reasonable conditions, you can certainly impose them.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say to that as well is most likely if you did do that and you did feel that this was more of a child care facility and impose those conditions, I think the only operator that's ever going to fit within those conditions is something like this medical therapy type use to begin with. So it's almost like a roundabout way of saying you guys are a different kind of use than a child care facility. So
And on that same point, I think if you don't think it's a medical office use, but you don't think it's childcare, then they would still need a D1 use variance because it's a use that's not mentioned. So if it's some hybrid of that you guys want to decide what term that is, then that's another option that you guys have where they'd have to prove the D1 use variance for that new hybrid sort of use, which I think is a little more difficult than a daycare can't come in.
Right.
It's going to have to be this hybrid, whatever term is you may come up with, if that's what the avenue you want to go down, as opposed to permitting a daycare, I think, like I said, is.
But I would love for us to not have to make that determination.
Right.
I would love for it to be really, really super clear, perhaps with the human.
I think it comes down to licensure. It's like what the operator is regulated on to be considered to operate. You open up a hair salon, you need to follow certain guidelines.
Right.
I would think there has to be something along with the state. Like you have your plan where you show your outline. You don't have to provide that to any other official to operate besides the local municipality.
Right, and
to make sure that it's safe for the kids during any sort. Even the insurance companies that are issuing the payments, they would want to make sure that if someone is playing on a jungle gym, that there's the safety or some sort of way to get those patients out. So there isn't known of another governing body that is out there. I would think that almost every license that's out there, someone to operate a business, there's another department that is controlling it.
And that's what Mr. Topper said when he mentioned that there's that I might have butchered. I think it's the BACB or the that. So and they have that in place, right? And that they do regulate the care that's being provided and all that. So,
but that I think we heard was licensure on the individual therapist,
Correct.
not on the facility.
Correct.
Not on the facility
itself.
Correct. Right.
And daycare facilities are regulated by the state. So that's something I think you could, I don't know how easy it would be, but you could ask the state, because it is something that's regulated. There is a department and a license process for it, and that someone should be able to give that.
I mean, I would pause if, thinking that this is a daycare, if we go down a path of approving it as a D1 variance and a daycare, knowing that they're not licensed as a daycare.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not our jurisdiction, but I don't know how you turn them, the blinders to that.
No, exactly.
Well, I mean, that's up to, we're saying it's a daycare, then, it's up to them to comply with whatever rules are out there.
I think the hybrid use is the best approach. I think if again, as we get more information about it, but I don't think it's still unclear as to the operation. So to deem a new change and add it in, I don't know if we have enough information yet.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and we will do whatever possible to dig that up. I just can't sit here and promise that we're going to get a signed, sealed letter from any department in the state saying this is that or this is not that. But
maybe a letter from the board that regulates your therapist.
Right,
and
could
again, that could be something the board's attorney can review.
Fair enough.
And understand that if again we're looking at some sort of hybrid use, that not only you have to provide that you have these type of therapists working and operating within the facility during these times, and that's something that we could again understand more if you take on possession of the building. You'd now move to a 20,000 square foot facility because you're growing, and there's another group that wants to rent the space, and now you got to monetize the building, and you have a regular daycare that wants to come in and says, oh, this is a great spot because it's right off Forest Avenue, the turnpike, the parkway's right there. That at least they know they can't just move in on the CCO of a daycare. They have to be able to show that they're regulated with therapists to take care of the children for any sort of medical condition.
Sure, understood.
So the insurance on the business and themselves is out of a medical office then, like when you.
Is that? I'd have to ask Akiva.
You state it again.
When the insurance on the building, when you insure your business for liability and all, is that of a medical office?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
As also the individual.
Maybe if you could come up to the microphone, thank you.
As well as the individuals being covered under the liability policy are also covered under medical.
Medical.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Other board questions?
So would if we were doing some sort of hybrid thing, I mean, presumably you're that or the daycare, that one of the conditions to approval would be that they would obtain any and all required licensures. I mean, I think that covers us, right?
Yeah, that's a standard condition. So I think it would be helpful for him to reach out to the state and see if it even qualifies as a daycare, because then we know now. But absolutely, that would be it's a standard condition that they have to comply with any and all, approvals, permits.
Could be.
I just think there's that question mark of what is that, which would be helpful to know now.
Yep. Anyone else? No? Okay. Members of the public, questions for this witness only.
Also, this 50 Beverly Road. What I'm really concerned about, did you do a traffic study on the intersection there? As far as the light?
The count cars.
The count cars and the timing of school hours when people are taking everybody to school, because there's a lot of schools down there, if you go down Ridgewood Ave.
Yeah, so typically in a traffic study, when you determine the scope of the study, you look at what's being proposed, and if what's being proposed would classify as a significant change in traffic is when you would study an intersection. That would be if you anticipate more than 50 vehicles from the existing condition per intersection. In this case, the use did not generate a high enough change in the amount of traffic anticipated, whether that is a daycare or a medical office. So for that reason, we did not do a specific studied intersection traffic study.
And you're saying that it's less than 50, you said?
50 vehicle trips.
50 vehicles. I'm also concerned about somebody trying to make a left there, and I know you can't make a left. This is a sign there, right?
Correct.
Now, when people make a left to go on Ridgewood Ave, and then if they want to go in that way, because they can't make it that way, they can back up the traffic. There's a traffic light.
There's a dedicated turn.
Trying to get
into the site.
Into the site. How many cars could be backed up there?
It's wide enough, I think it should be done.
It is wide enough that if needed, a vehicle could pass someone waiting to make the left.
Yeah, but it's two lanes.
It is one lane in either direction.
Yeah. So that one lane, when you make the left, you could have, you say you're having 5 guys coming in the morning at 8 o'clock at the same time.
Those, if there were, it would be highly unlikely they'd all arrive at the same time, that they'd all be coming from that direction, that they would all need to make the left. In general, a vehicle making a left only needs a few seconds of what we call a gap in traffic to be able to make that turn. And especially we are in New Jersey, vehicles do accept a very small gap. Typically when we do studies like this, the gap acceptance they see is 4 seconds of gaps in vehicles coming in. For that reason, I do not anticipate that that there would be much queuing turning from Ridgewood Avenue into the site, let alone queuing that's about 3 to 4 vehicles length to get to that intersection. That would be an extremely.
Because there'll be other cars coming, going north and making a right to go on to Ridgewood also at the same time.
Again, this is a small facility. It's likely that within a 10-15 minute span, you're only seeing 1 to 2 cars coming to the site.
And then you got all the people that drop off all the kids down at the other school. There's some schools down there, and they'll be going down Ridgewood Ave anyway. That's my opinion there. And
state,
maybe
it's
very
difficult. The problem with it is that there's no sum total of all the changes going on in the county to take it.
Yeah.
We asked the mayor to bring it up
right,
to the county executive.
County has to approve this anyway.
If you're not changing the entrance and all the county still has to approve it? Okay.
Yeah, they could issue a letter of jurisdictional determination, but we would have to get something from them, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, do I need to repeat my address?
If you could just repeat your name, please.
Sure. Laura Ahern. So I have a question. The current occupants of the second floor is a legal office and financial, is that correct?
To my knowledge, correct.
Okay. So, and I've lived here 20 years, so I know the use of that building pretty well. Would you agree that clients come in and out for those occupants of that building?
They could. I don't know specifically that exact office.
So your 7 cars, that takes into account only the current occupants and not possibly...
So the way we conduct a parking study is we go to the site and we count the vehicles observed on site. We do not know if those vehicles belonged to the attorney, the paralegal, or a client. What we saw was that there were 7 vehicles parked on site. I don't know. We may have lost our screens.
And how long did you observe that?
For this study, we visited the site on 2 different occasions to get a morning and an evening idea of what the site looked like.
For what duration?
We just do a spot shot at an office building. Typically, there's not much turnover for that use. You know, if this is a convenience store, say, you may study it for an hour and look at every 10 to 15 minutes. For an office site, if you think of your own office, it's likely that throughout the day, there's a pretty consistent amount of vehicles parked on site.
But it is possible that, especially, as I said, I've been a resident there a long time, and they tax time, I know there's a great deal more traffic at that point because they consult with the firms there. So I think one quick shot in time may not be indicative of the reality of what the use of that building. I did want to also, I wanted to verify that coming from Forest down, turning left to Ridgewood, I thought when we drove here that was a double line. Is it definitely an entrance going left, so you'd have to intersect across the people coming up?
Yes.
It's a double line, so people theoretically would have to go all the way down, find a place to turn around to come back up to make that right into the building. Is that correct?
Sorry, what is the question?
Yeah, I think you're mentioning on Ridgewood. So if you're going
heading east on Ridgewood, there's a double yellow
making
line.
a left, I think there's a break in order to open up for that drive aisle that's there, but I
It
don't
was
know.
night, but I'm pretty certain.
Breaks and roads are designed.
Yeah.
Breaks and roads are designed to turn onto other roads, not private driveways. You can cross a double line into a private driveway.
Sorry,
That's
so
not-
if it's a double line on
Unless there's
Ridgewood
a
Ave,
specific signage saying no left turn, you are allowed to cross into private driveways.
you could cross over the double line.
Into the driveway, she's
Into a private driveway.
private driveway, which would be this property. But if you were doing the cross the double yellow line to do a U-turn or to go into another, I guess really just a U-turn, that's the illegal move. But if you're pulling into that facility, being that it's private and it's been granted the curb cut,
For example, on Forest Avenue, where there is signage to not turn left into the driveway, that's where you are not permitted to turn into a private driveway.
Yeah. Anecdotally speaking, people absolutely try to do that on that street. And the traffic coming from the other direction is very fast. I know I've seen studies done on the speed on that road, and people are zooming by.
40.
I think 50. I think if you study the number of accidents at that intersection, you're going to see the rates very high. The reason I know that is the amount of ambulances and police vehicles we see at that intersection on a fairly regular basis, including having seen a car come up on the lawn there. So if new tenants come into the building, it is possible then, if there's up to 50 to 60, we even heard the number 60, I think, people occupying the lower space, that theoretically could happen in the upper space based on the square footage. Is that correct?
Not necessarily, no.
Why? Why is that?
So first of all, for two reasons. One, there are parking requirements. So if you're going to be a use that demands greater parking than what is on the site, that would be a variance, and you'd need to get approval for that. And second of all, as I mentioned to Ms. Day before, one of the things when you're a property owner, you can put in your commercial leases to your other tenants saying you are permitted X number of parking spaces for your business. So that is controllable.
And again, 50, that is based on patients and therapists. That is not vehicles. There's a difference there.
Okay, and would it be fair to say that regardless of a parent's best intention to get there at a scheduled time, I think the attorney himself had said that he knows as a parent you do your very best and you very well could find yourself with, a line of cars there because people, regardless of their assigned times, could arrive.
But to a doctor's office, I am always on time because you have a scheduled appointment and you have your slot.
Which is different than a daycare, though.
That's exactly the point, yeah.
And self-proclaimed on the website, it does appear to be a daycare, so I just want to understand what the ramifications of this would be. Just want to see if I had any other questions.
Well, one good point that I think you made that I would just offer to stipulate, because I think it's a good one, is if you do miss your time slot, which could happen even not on purpose. What if you have a different appointment that day and you get there at your unscheduled time? As Mr. Topper mentioned, there is an on-site operations manager, so I don't think he'd have any concern with putting in some type of requirement within the patient agreements that says if you're not going to arrive at your scheduled time, you need to call the on-site operator to schedule a time.
Okay, and as we noted, it sounds like if this turns out to be considered childcare, then that opens the door for anybody coming in after to not have scheduled time. So I thought that was an excellent point. Okay, I do have a public comment, but I think you said that.
That'll be at the end, yep. Okay. Any other public questions? No? Okay. We will close up for public questions. So we're at a logical break point. I think you mentioned you had one other witness plus a couple of follow-ups that we talked about. So our next meeting, which is actually an excellent segue to our 2026 calendar, our next meeting is Wednesday, January 21st, because there's a holiday on Monday.
It's Wednesday.
Wednesday.
I will have to make it from Knowlton from a 3 p.m. case management conference, but I think I can do it. It'll be at 7:30.
No, I don't even know where that is.
It's south.
Way south.
Yeah.
We have another application, right?
We do have another.
So
yeah, the
if
five.
It's easier
Yeah.
for you for time. We could slot you in the, but.
I would still take first. What I would suggest as well, because I think the chairman made a good point, if this is determined that there's some type of consensus that this is medical, no matter how it's determined, our planning testimony is our last testimony. So we do anticipate having a single witness. So I don't anticipate it taking too long.
Okay. I think the other, and Steve might be able to advise, the other application was in first anyway, so they might just be naturally first, so that gives you a little bit of extra travel time.
That's why we closed your portion.
Yes, normally it's up to the board whether they want to change the agenda, but normally the case is the first applicant, the calendar number will come before. But you can certainly give them a time limit.
Okay, well, let's stay in touch.
We'll figure it out.
Leading up till then. Okay.
So, Chairman, just to confirm that this application is carried with no further notice.
Yes, carried with no further notice.
That'll
Thank you.
be the January 21st, 2026 hearing.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you. Okay. If you're going to leave the room, please keep it to a dull roar. We just have a couple of other items to work through. Moving on to old business. Only old business I can think of is the cyber security certification that might still be out there. I think it's March that it's due, but don't wait too long. Any other old business? Thoughts or questions? New business. Like I mentioned, our 2026 meeting dates are out. They are all the third Monday of the month, with the exception of January and February, because of the holidays, Martin Luther King Jr. and Washington's birthday, President's Day, as we call it. Any other new business? All right.
Is everyone agreeable to these meeting dates?
Any conflicts? I mean, not a huge surprise.
I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow.
Right?
so-
Yeah, exactly. I can't look that far into the future. What do I know? I know.
Things are looking up.
They're looking up.
All right, so we'll consider it approved, the meeting dates.
Oh, is that what we're supposed to approve this?
days are
Okay.
getting long? Is that what-
That's right. I thought we were just
I
being
know, it's
informed.
nice. I know.
All right.
We could change it. We actually, if you don't, if there's conflict, right, we could change.
Sure.
All right.
That's tough.
I have
Steve,
no
do you
conflict,
normally
so
do a
I-
resolution for the,
So can we have a motion to approve the 2026 meeting dates?
So moved.
All right. Can we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Meeting dates are ratified. Didn't even know we could approve that.
I don't even, he was asking us to read it.
Excellent. Public comment. Do we have any? Of course we do.
Of course.
Do you have everybody's dates?
Pretty short.
Yeah, right.
Just want to remind you,
Yes.
the more people we have, by having two boards, the better off we're going to be, because we're going to have more opinions. That's more important than anything else. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay.
Sam Tripsis, 327 Maple Avenue. I want to comment on the merging of the boards. Going back in 2012, this came up. Took several months. There was a lot of opposition. At one point, the zoning board threatened to quit, to resign, and it actually got as far as a resolution. And then at the end, the mayor and council backed off. But the main reason they were trying to say, they're saying it now, that there's no applications. But as soon as that happened, we got bombarded with applications. You know, it's a flow. Sometimes it's dry, sometimes, you can't predict. You don't know the next big, and there were big projects. So I believe, and somebody used the word dilute. You got to ask the public, The public stands and sees the dais from this side. And I think the zoning board is strong. I don't think you should want to dilute, I'll use the word dilute, to combine a board with different personalities. So you have, and you're going to have less people, and probably you're going to have two twice a month. I heard that come up, that you could be meeting twice a month. So if you're thinking maybe you don't have enough people on the board here, you can't do a quorum, somehow get more members, get interested parties that can commit. Somebody that's really, really interested in the town, But I've watched every meeting I've been here 36 years, but I haven't come to every meeting in 36 years, but I've come to enough that I see what's going on. And you ask questions, and that's good. I hear that all the time, and then, you get a project that's controversial. Well, maybe it's a little bit too big. Scale it back a little bit, but make the suggestion. Don't just say, accept what the attorney says. The attorney for the applicant says they're aggressive. They're looking at you, and they're looking at the chair, and they're sizing up the board by the chair. If you have a good chair, that's a big thing.
No pressure.
Yeah. But I used to work for Sprint and T-Mobile, where I went before a lot of boards too, and you could see it. You have a weak board that people aren't interested in what they're doing and they're not paying attention. The applicant wins. And they shouldn't always. But there's been applications here I didn't always agree, but you put your effort in it, And then a lot of times it came out in the favor of the residents. You know, I say that because I'm a resident and I care about where I live. You know, and then it got brought up about well, they didn't say Bank of America, but I'm saying that's 420 Kennecott. That could have been scaled back, but I didn't see the planning board ask enough questions, and they didn't. They hesitated. And in the end, what are we going to get? We're going to get an oversized building that could have been a few apartments less, you know, possibly. You know, it didn't have to not be built, but it didn't have to take up the whole property. So I would just say, think about it, you know. I saw it was one town at the time, it was Rochelle Park. They had two separate boards. I mean, they had the land use board, and then they separated them again. Now they're back to the land use board, I believe, but it didn't work out for whatever reason, you know. And then checks and balances too. You got to look at who's appointing who. The mayor and council. The mayor appoints for the planning board, but the zoning board is mayor and council. You know, so personalities are everything. You know, what's the agenda? You know, so that's my 2 cents. But listen to the public who sees it. Thank you.
No, we appreciate it. And I mean, ultimately, you know, we can all collectively have an opinion, show up to the meetings, give the opinion, but...
Have you expressed it at the mayor and council meeting?
Exactly
Tomorrow
that.
night.
Yeah.
I've expressed it at the planning board, you know, but usually there's no one here. That's the problem. You know, you hope people are watching it on TV, you know, but...
There is actually an audience. More people than you think come up to me and say, "Oh, I saw you on TV."
Yeah, you get that. Yeah.
Well, it needs to get interactive.
Yeah. Body language, you know, you hear you're having a debate. You can't do that on TV.
Right.
So, yeah, but tomorrow night I believe it's going to be discussed. The last week's meeting was for fair share housing, and someone brought it up, and they said, "Oh, we're not talking about that tonight. We'll talk about that on the next council meeting."
Yep.
So, thank you.
All right. Thank you. With that, we will close public comment. The only thing left to say is thank you for another big year. So, to all of our public, our viewers, our professionals, the board, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, enjoy the end of the year, and thank you. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great
Thank
job.
you.
Filling
Thank
those
you.
shoes, all right.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
1 year down.
1 year down,
38 to go.
Yeah, think about if anyone wants to take this over in January. Don't think I'm feeling like I have to do this, but anyway, do we have a motion to adjourn?
You have a question, Tom?
I just had one question. I mean, just are any of the terms up? I mean, because I think one of the things that is important, that is we just, you know, make sure we have a quorum at every meeting.
I think I have
if we are going to stand up and, you know, stay as a board, or the mayor and council chooses to have us, we have to make sure that there's a quorum at every meeting.
Here we go. The only people, actually me. So
you have to be reappointed.
So I would have to be reappointed. I would have to be reappointed, and Warren. Vincent, you filled.
Still on the board?
Vincent, you filled the seat of someone who would also have to. So you would. So the three of us would have to be reappointed.
And who is that? The mayor?
Mayor and council, right?
And is that 1st of January?
Yeah. So they would have to reappoint tomorrow. To be, unless they meet again before the end.
No, it'd be done at the reorg meeting, which is January 5th. So
okay, all right. They meet
would have
twice
to be
before
the January 20th meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm sure they have that on their agenda.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's why we're having discussions now.
Good call. Okay. Yeah. Other than that, so the three of us this year. Then there's another 2 the following year. 1 the year after, and then a couple of 28s. Maureen, you and Carlo have the longest. You get to stick around for a long time.
Maybe we'll get our emails back.
27. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Anyone,
I'll
any
second.
second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Happy New Year. Yeah.